"Wait!" Jennifer screamed as they led her away. "Robert, tell them. Tell them you made me do it. Tell them you needed the money. Tell them I never made you do anything," Robert said dully. "You embezzled that money on your own. I didn't even know about it until you needed a divorce lawyer and I offered to help pay for it," Jennifer shrieked. "Until you started planning how to leave Maggie and needed money hidden where she couldn't trace it. You're just as guilty as I am." The federal agents paused. One of them looked at Robert with new interest. "Mr. Chen, we're going to need to speak with you as well. Conspiracy charges may be applicable if you knowingly benefited from funds obtained illegally." "I want my lawyer," Robert said immediately. "That's your right, sir, but you'll need to come with us to answer some questions." I watched as Robert stood, his expensive suit wrinkled now, his silver hair disheveled, his face aged by what looked like decades in the span of an hour. He looked at me one last time. "Maggie, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I am truly deeply sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I never meant to hurt you." "You never meant to get caught," I corrected. "There's a difference, Robert." As they led him away, not in handcuffs like Jennifer, but escorted firmly by federal agents, I turned back to the crowd. 200 people who'd come for champagne and celebration and had gotten front-row seats to the destruction of everything they'd believed about the Chen family. "I apologize for ruining your Saturday afternoon," I said into the microphone. "I know this isn't what any of you expected, but I thought you all deserved to know the truth. The lobster rolls and clam chowder are still available if anyone's hungry. The champagne is still chilled. Feel free to stay and enjoy the party." No one moved. No one knew what to say or do. Pastor Brooks stepped forward, his face compassionate despite the shock. "Margaret, I think we should pray." "Pray?" I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Pray for what, Pastor? For my marriage? It never existed. For Robert's soul? He sold that years ago. For Jennifer's redemption? She's going to federal prison. Tell me, what exactly should we pray for?" "For healing," the pastor said gently. "For you, for David, for Emma, for everyone who's been hurt by these sins. For the strength to forgive, even when it seems impossible." "I don't want to forgive," I said, and I heard my voice break for the first time. "I want them to suffer like I'm suffering. I want them to lose everything like I've lost everything. I want—" My legs gave out. David caught me before I hit the ground, holding me up as 50 years of suppressed pain finally broke through. I sobbed against my son's chest while 200 people watched, while Emma put her arms around both of us, while Lily quietly shut down the presentation and began packing up evidence. The party was over. My marriage was over. But somehow, standing there surrounded by the wreckage of everything I'd believed in, held up by my son and my husband's secret daughter, I realized something. I was still standing. Broken, devastated, humiliated in front of everyone I knew, but still standing. And that was something Robert and Jennifer could never take away from me. The crowd began to disperse slowly, like survivors leaving a disaster site. Some people approached me with awkward condolences, not knowing what to say in the face of such public devastation. Others fled quickly, already pulling out their phones to spread the gossip, to tell everyone they knew about the Chen family scandal they'd witnessed firsthand. I stood there with David and Emma on either side of me, forming a small island of shared trauma in the middle of the chaos. My legs felt weak, my hands trembled, but I refused to sit down. If I sat, I might never stand up again. Eleanor Brooks, my neighbor from down the street, pushed through the dispersing crowd to reach me. She was 73, a widow for 5 years, and one of the kindest women I'd ever known. Her eyes were red from crying. "Maggie," she said, taking both my hands in hers. "Oh, Maggie, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. None of us had any idea." "No one did," I said, my voice hoarse from shouting and crying. "Except Sarah. Sarah knew for 22 years. Eleanor's expression hardened. "Where is Sarah?" I looked around. Sarah had vanished at some point during the confrontation. Probably ran when the federal agents arrived, not wanting to be associated with the scandal any more than she already was. "She left," David said flatly. "She slipped out while Mom was talking. Coward to the very end." "Good riddance," Eleanor said fiercely. "Anyone who calls themselves your friend and keeps secrets like that for decades is no friend at all. Maggie, listen to me. You're not alone in this. You hear me? You have real friends. People who love you. People who will stand by you." "Thank you, Eleanor," I whispered. Don't thank me yet, Eleanor said, because I'm about to tell you something you're not going to like. Robert came to see me 3 weeks ago. My blood went cold. What? He showed up at my door on a Tuesday morning, said he needed advice about senior living facilities, said you were having memory problems, getting confused, and he was worried you might need to be in assisted care soon. He asked me if I'd noticed you acting strangely. The room seemed to tilt. Memory problems? I don't have memory problems. I know that now, Eleanor said, but Robert was very convincing. He said you'd been forgetting appointments, leaving the stove on, getting lost driving home from familiar places. He said he was worried about your safety. He asked if I'd be willing to sign a statement saying I'd witnessed your cognitive decline. Did you? David demanded. I told him I'd think about it, Eleanor said, her face flushed with shame. I said I hadn't noticed anything, but if he was concerned, maybe you should see a doctor. But Maggie, now I understand what he was doing. He was building a case. Trying to have you declared mentally incompetent so he could take control of your finances. My stomach turned over. The life insurance increase, the questions about my mental health. Robert hadn't just been planning to leave me, he'd been planning to have me declared incompetent first so he could drain our accounts without my interference. Who else did he talk to? I asked. Eleanor, did he go to other neighbors? Other friends? Eleanor's silence was answer enough. Tell me, I commanded. Margaret Lewis 2 doors down, Paul Henderson across the street, your book club friend Diane. He told all of them the same story, that you were declining mentally, that he was worried, that he might need witnesses if he had to petition for guardianship. Guardianship, I repeated numbly. The word tasted like poison. David's face had gone absolutely white with rage. He was going to have Mom declared incompetent. He was going to get legal guardianship over her, control all her money, probably put her in a nursing home, and then live happily ever after with Jennifer and their new baby. That son of a bitch, Emma said, her voice shaking. That's what he did to my mother. Near the end, when she was dying, he suggested she sign over power of attorney to him. Said he could manage her medical care better, make sure she got the best treatment. Mom refused. She said if she couldn't trust him to acknowledge his own daughter publicly, she sure as hell wasn't going to trust him with her life. A new voice cut through our conversation. Actually, it's worse than that. We all turned. A man in his 50s, wearing khakis and a polo shirt, stood nearby. I didn't recognize him. Who are you? David asked sharply. Marcus Webb, the man said. I'm an architect. I work with Jennifer at Morrison Design Associates. Or I did, until about 20 minutes ago when I called the partners and told them everything I know about her embezzlement. Marcus Webb, the name from Lily's investigation. The other man Jennifer had been sleeping with while carrying on with Robert. You're Jennifer's lover, I said flatly. Marcus flinched. Was. Past tense. And I didn't know she was married when we started seeing each other. She told me she was divorced, that David was her ex-husband, and they maintained a friendly relationship for business reasons. She said Robert was her mentor, helping her with career advice. I believed her for 3 months before I figured out she was lying about everything. Why are you here? David asked. Because Jennifer stole from me too, Marcus said bitterly. Last month she convinced me to invest $50,000 in what she said was a new business venture, real estate development in Cape Cod. The investment didn't exist. She took my money and used it to buy gifts for your father, a Rolex watch, to be specific. I saw him wearing it in one of those photos on the screen. He pulled out his phone and showed us a bank transfer. $50,000 from Marcus Webb to Jennifer Morrison, dated May 3rd. When I confronted her about it yesterday, she laughed. Marcus continued. She said I was stupid for trusting her, that men always are. She said I should be grateful. She even looked at me, that she was doing me a favor. That's when I realized I needed to tell someone. So I called the FBI this morning and told them everything I knew about her financial crimes. You're the one who tipped off the federal agents, I said. I am. And I'm not sorry. Jennifer Morrison is a predator. She preys on people who trust her. Her employers, her husband, her lovers, her family. She deserves everything that's coming to her. Thank you, David said quietly, for coming forward, for telling the truth. Marcus nodded. Mr. Chen, I'm sorry about your father, but you should know Jennifer wasn't in love with him. She told me she was using him. She said old men with money are easy marks. They're grateful for attention from younger women, and they'll give you anything you want if you make them feel virile again. She called it her retirement plan. The words hung in the air like poison gas. Robert thought he'd found true love with Jennifer, but she'd been using him just as cynically as he'd been using me. There was a certain horrible justice to that. More people approached as the tent emptied. Some offered support. Others just wanted to gawk, to say they'd spoken to me in the aftermath, to be part of the story they'd tell at dinner parties for years to come. Robert's former colleague, James Patterson, stopped by. "Maggie, I'm appalled. I worked with Robert for 30 years. I thought he was a man of integrity. I'm so sorry you had to find out like this." "How did you think I should have found out?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Privately? Quietly? Would that have hurt less?" James didn't have an answer for that. Diane from my book club hugged me tightly. "I should tell you something," she whispered. "Robert did come to me asking about your memory. But Maggie, I told him he was crazy. I said you remember every book we've read for the past 10 years better than any of us. I told him if anyone was having cognitive problems, it was him for even suggesting it." "Thank you," I said, meaning it. "I should have told you he came to me," Diane added. "I thought it was just a worried husband being overprotective. Now I see it was something much worse. I'm sorry I didn't warn you." By 4 o'clock, the park had mostly cleared. The caterers packed up untouched lobster rolls and clam chowder. The jazz band had left without playing a single song. The champagne remained unopened. 50 tables set for celebration sat empty, white linens fluttering in the breeze off the Charles River. Lily approached our small group, me, David, Emma, Eleanor, and surprisingly, Marcus Webb, who seemed to have nowhere else to go. "Mrs. Chen," Lily said, "the federal agents want to speak with you. They're building their case against Jennifer, and they'll need your testimony about the joint accounts, the forged signatures, everything." "When?" "Tomorrow morning. They're giving you tonight to rest." But Mrs. Chen, she hesitated, "They're also investigating Robert. The forgery, the insurance fraud attempt, possibly conspiracy with Jennifer. He's being held for questioning. They'll probably release him tonight with travel restrictions, but he'll be facing charges." "Good," I said. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no revenge, no pain, just emptiness. "There's one more thing," Lily said carefully. "The press is outside the park. TV news crews, newspaper reporters, bloggers. This story is everywhere already. Someone recorded most of the confrontation and put it on social media. It's gone viral. You're trending on Twitter. The Boston Globe wants an exclusive interview." "No," I said immediately. "Mom, you should consider it," David said. "If you don't tell your story, other people will tell it for you. At least this way, you control the narrative." "I don't want to control any narrative," I said tiredly. "I just want to go home." "You can't," Lily said gently. "Robert has keys to your house. Until we know he's not a threat, until we know what he might do, it's not safe for you to be there alone." "Then I'll stay with her," David said immediately. "Jennifer's in custody. I'm not going home to our empty house. I'll stay with Mom." "I can stay too," Emma offered quietly. "If you want. I mean, I know we just met, and this is all insane, but you're my family, the only family I have left. And I don't want you to be alone." I looked at this young woman, my husband's secret daughter, my son's half-sister, 28 years old, freshly motherless, discovering that her father was a monster. She'd lost everything today, too. We all had. "Yes," I said. "Stay. Both of you stay." Eleanor squeezed my hand. "I'll check on you tomorrow. And Maggie, I know this doesn't help right now, but you're the strongest woman I know. You stood up there and told the truth even though it destroyed you. That takes courage most people will never have." As the sun began to set over the Charles River, casting golden light over the disaster site that was supposed to have been my anniversary celebration, I realized something. I had started this day as Robert Chen's wife, as half of a partnership everyone admired, as part of what people called a model marriage. I was ending it as just Margaret Chen, 78 years old, betrayed, humiliated, financially devastated, publicly destroyed, but also for the first time in 50 years, completely, utterly, terrifyingly free. The question was, what would I do with that freedom? The answer would have to wait until tomorrow. Tonight, I just needed to survive. We drove to my house in 3 separate cars, David in his Mercedes, Emma in her modest Toyota, and me in my Honda with Lily following behind in her surveillance van. Even now, even after everything, Lily was protecting me, making sure Robert didn't somehow show up, making sure I was safe. The house looked exactly as it had this morning when I'd left for my hair appointment. The hydrangea bushes I'd planted 30 years ago bloomed purple and blue along the walkway. The white Victorian facade gleamed in the early evening light. The porch swing where Robert and I used to sit on summer evenings swayed gently in the breeze. Everything looked normal. Everything looked like home, but it wasn't home anymore. It was just a building where I'd lived a lie for 50 years. "Mom, let me go in first," David said, taking my keys. "Let me make sure everything's okay." He went inside with Lily while Emma and I waited on the porch. We didn't speak. What was there to say? We were 2 women connected by the same man's betrayal, standing in the wreckage of our lives, trying to figure out how to move forward. "Your mother," I finally said. "Catherine. What was she like?" Emma looked surprised by the question. "Kind," she said after a moment. "Sad, mostly, but kind. She worked double shifts at the hospital to make ends meet even though Dad Robert sent money. She said she didn't want to depend on him too much. Didn't want to be a burden. She sounds like a good woman." She was. She deserved better than to be someone's secret. I deserved better than to be hidden like I was something shameful. Emma's voice cracked. "Mrs. Chen, I'm sorry. I know you didn't ask for any of this. You didn't ask for me to exist." "Call me Maggie," I said. "And Emma, you existing isn't the problem. Robert lying about you for 28 years is the problem. You're the victim here as much as I am." David emerged from the house. It's clear, no sign of Dad. "But Mom, you should know he's been here recently. There's a suitcase in his workshop, half packed. Looks like he was planning to leave." My heart, which I thought had been thoroughly broken already, somehow managed to break a little more. He'd been planning to leave me. Probably planning to wait until after the anniversary party, after the celebration, after he'd played the devoted husband one last time for the cameras. Then he would have packed that suitcase, moved out, and started divorce proceedings, probably with me painted as the mentally incompetent wife who needed to be in a care facility. "Burn it," I said. "What?" "The suitcase. His clothes. All of it. Burn it in the backyard. I never want to see any of it again." "Mom, that's evidence," David said carefully. "The lawyers might need it." "Then photograph it first. But I don't want his things in this house. Not anymore." Lily pulled out her phone and started taking pictures of the workshop, the suitcase, everything. David and Emma carried the suitcase outside while I stood in the living room, my living room, where I'd raised my son, where I'd hosted Christmas dinners and birthday parties and book clubs, where Robert had kissed Jennifer, where they'd planned their future together while I was at work. "I can't stay here," I said suddenly. "I can't sleep in this house tonight. I can't be surrounded by all of this." "We can go to a hotel," David offered. "No, hotels are where Robert took Jennifer. I don't want to be anywhere that reminds me of them." Emma spoke up hesitantly. "My apartment is small, but there's a pull-out couch. You could stay with me. Both of you. It's not fancy, but it's honest. Nothing bad has happened there. No lies, no betrayals. Just a normal apartment where a preschool teacher lives with her cat." "You have a cat?" I asked, latching onto this small normal detail like a lifeline. "Mr. Whiskers. He's orange and fat and judgmental. My mother got him for me 5 years ago. He's the best listener in the world." "I'd like to meet Mr. Whiskers," I heard myself say. So we packed bags. David threw some of his old clothes from his childhood bedroom into a duffel. I grabbed toiletries and a change of clothes, and we left. Just walked out of that house with its 50 years of memories and its lifetime of lies. Lily followed us to Emma's apartment in Somerville. It was a 3rd-floor walk-up in a converted triple-decker, the kind of building that housed young professionals and grad students and people just starting their adult lives. The hallway smelled like someone's cooking garlic and tomatoes, something Italian. Normal. Human. Real. Emma's apartment was tiny, maybe 600 square feet, but she'd made it cozy. Bookshelves overflowing with picture books and teaching materials. A small gallery wall of children's artwork with names like Jaden and Sophia written in crayon. A window box with herbs growing basil, rosemary, thyme. And there, Lounging on the back of the couch like he owned the place was the largest orange cat I'd ever seen. "Mr. Whiskers," Emma said, scooping him up. "We have guests. Be nice." The cat looked at me with enormous green eyes, seemed to judge me and find me acceptable, and began to purr. "He likes you," Emma said, surprised. "He doesn't like most people." I took the cat from her and buried my face in his warm, soft fur. And for the first time since this morning, since David had walked into my kitchen with his terrible news, I felt something other than pain and rage and betrayal. I felt comfort. Mr. Whiskers purred louder, as if he understood exactly what I needed. "I'll make tea," Emma said. "Mom always said tea fixes everything. It doesn't, really, but it gives you something to do with your hands." While Emma busied herself in her tiny kitchen, David sat beside me on the couch. "Mom, are you okay? And before you say yes, I want the real answer." "No," I said simply. "I'm not okay. I don't think I'm going to be okay for a very long time. But David, I'm also not dead." This morning, when I found out everything, part of me wanted to die, wanted this to be over, wanted to not have to face the humiliation and the pain and the reality that my entire adult life was built on lies. "But you didn't," David said quietly. "But I didn't. I got angry instead. And anger, it turns out, is much more useful than despair." Emma brought over 3 mugs of tea chamomile, she said, for calm, and we sat together in her small living room, the 3 of us. A betrayed wife, a betrayed son, a secret daughter. The family Robert Chen had tried so hard to keep separate, now united by his destruction. My phone, which I'd silenced hours ago, was full of notifications. Texts, calls, voicemails. I scrolled through them. My sister Diana in Chicago. "Maggie, what is happening? I'm seeing videos all over social media. Call me immediately." Former teaching colleagues. "We had no idea. We're so sorry. We're here if you need anything." Friends from church. "Praying for you." Strangers. "You're an inspiration. You're so brave. I'm going through something similar, and you gave me courage." And then, buried in the notifications, one from Robert's lawyer. "Mrs. Chen, this is attorney Richard Walsh, representing Robert Chen. My client wishes to discuss settlement terms for an amicable divorce. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience." If this moment truly hit home for you, don't forget to tap that like button. It tells me you're right here with me. Can you see a bit of yourself in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what part spoke to you most. I showed it to David. He wants an amicable divorce. After everything, he wants amicable. "What are you going to do?" Emma asked. I thought about it. Robert wanted amicable. Robert wanted to quietly divide assets, sign papers, move on with his life. Maybe move in with Jennifer if she somehow avoided prison. Maybe start fresh, pretend the past 50 years hadn't happened. "I'm going to destroy him," I said calmly. "Completely, legally, financially. I'm going to take everything. The house, the retirement accounts, the investments, everything. And then I'm going to make sure he never forgets what he threw away." Mom, David started. "He tried to have me declared mentally incompetent," I continued, my voice getting stronger. "He tried to increase my life insurance and have me sign over power of attorney. He was planning to either lock me in a nursing home or wait for me to conveniently die. David, your father wasn't just leaving me, he was trying to erase me. And I'm not going to let him get away with that." Lily, who'd been sitting quietly in the corner, spoke up. "Mrs. Chen, I have a colleague. A divorce attorney who specializes in high-conflict cases. She's represented women in situations like yours, elder financial abuse, hidden assets, fraud. She's ruthless, and she wins. Her name is Margaret O'Brien. Everyone calls her Maggie, actually. Maggie the Shark." "Perfect," I said. "Set up a meeting for tomorrow. After I talk to the federal agents, I want to talk to Maggie the Shark." We spent the evening in Emma's small apartment, eating takeout Thai food she'd ordered, watching Mr. Whiskers chase a toy mouse, talking about everything except Robert and Jennifer and the disaster our lives had become. Emma told us about her preschool class 18 4-year-olds, most of them speaking English as a second language, all of them brilliant and exhausting and wonderful. David told us about a surgery he'd performed last week, a valve replacement on a 92-year-old woman who'd told him she wasn't ready to die yet because her great-granddaughter was getting married. Next month. I told them about my favorite student from my teaching years, a little boy named Marcus who couldn't read in September and was devouring chapter books by May, who'd cried on the last day of school and said I was the best teacher in the whole world. Normal stories, normal lives. The lives we'd been living while Robert systematically betrayed us all. Around midnight, David pulled out the couch into a bed. "You take the bedroom, Mom. Emma, you take the bed with her. I'll sleep out here with Mr. Whiskers." "I can't take your bed," I protested to Emma. "Yes, you can. It's a queen. There's room for both of us. Besides," she smiled sadly, "I don't want to be alone tonight. Do you?" I didn't. We lay in Emma's bed, this stranger who was my husband's daughter, this young woman I'd known for less than 12 hours, and stared at the ceiling in the dark. "Maggie?" Emma whispered. "Yes? Thank you for not hating me. For not blaming me for existing. My whole life, I thought if Robert's wife ever found out about me, she'd hate me. She'd think I ruined her marriage." "You didn't ruin anything," I said firmly. "Robert ruined it. 28 years before today, he made a choice. And he kept making that choice, over and over, every day. That's not on you. That's on him." "Do you think we'll ever be okay?" Emma asked. "All of us? Do you think we'll heal?" I thought about that question. Would I heal? Would this raw, gaping wound ever close? Would I ever trust anyone again? Would I ever feel whole? "I don't know," I admitted. "But Emma, we survived today. We survived the worst day of our lives, and we're still here. We're still breathing. Tomorrow we'll survive again. And the day after that. And eventually maybe survival becomes living again." "I hope so," Emma whispered. Outside, Boston hummed with its Saturday night energy. People were out at restaurants and bars, laughing and dancing and living their lives, completely unaware that in a small apartment in Somerville, 3 people who'd had their worlds destroyed were trying to figure out how to build something new from the rubble. I fell asleep holding hands with my husband's secret daughter, my son sleeping in the next room, a fat orange cat purring at my feet. It wasn't the life I'd planned. But it was honest. And after 50 years of lies, honest felt like a gift. I woke at dawn to the smell of coffee and the sound of quiet voices. For a moment, one blessed peaceful moment, I didn't remember. I was just an old woman waking up in a strange bed, wondering where I was. Then it all came crashing back. The anniversary party, the presentation, Robert and Jennifer, Emma, the federal agents. 50 years of lies exposed in front of 200 people. I sat up slowly, my 78-year-old body protesting. Every muscle ached like I'd been in a physical fight. In some ways, I had been. Emma's side of the bed was empty, already made with hospital corners that spoke of years of careful habits learned from a nurse mother. I could hear her voice in the kitchen, talking softly with David. "I don't know how she's going to handle seeing him today," David was saying. "The federal agents want her to give a statement. She'll have to go over everything again. Every lie, every betrayal, every dollar he stole." "She's stronger than you think," Emma replied. "Did you see her yesterday? Standing up there, telling the truth, even though it was destroying her? That takes strength most people don't have." "She's my mother," David said, his voice cracking. "I'm supposed to protect her. And I didn't. I knew for months what Dad was doing, and I didn't stop it. I didn't protect her." "You were protecting yourself," Emma said gently. "That's not wrong, David. You were in survival mode. We all were." I got up quietly, splashed water on my face in Emma's tiny bathroom, and looked at myself in the mirror. My expensive hair and makeup from yesterday were ruined, mascara smudged, carefully styled waves, now a tangled mess. I looked like exactly what I was, a 78-year-old woman who'd had the worst day of her life. But I was still here, still breathing, still fighting. I walked into the kitchen. David and Emma sat at a small table barely big enough for 2 people, nursing coffee from mismatched mugs. They looked up when I entered, their faces filled with concern. "Mom," David said, standing immediately. "How did you sleep?" "Surprisingly well," I admitted. "Better than I have in months, actually. Maybe because for the first time in years, I wasn't lying next to a man who was betraying me." Emma poured me coffee without asking black, no sugar, somehow knowing exactly how I took it. "We have bagels," she offered, "and cream cheese. It's not much, but it's perfect," I said, sitting down at the tiny table. Mr. Whiskers immediately jumped into my lap, purring like a diesel engine. What time do I need to be at the federal building? 9 o'clock, Lily said, appearing in the doorway. I hadn't even heard her arrive. I'm driving you. David and Emma can come if you want support, or they can wait here. I want them there, I said immediately. I want Robert to see that his children, both of them, are standing with me, not him. We arrived at the federal building in downtown Boston at 8:45. The media was there, of course camera crews and reporters with microphones, shouting questions as we pushed through. Mrs. Chen, how do you feel about your husband's arrest? Are you filing for divorce? Did you have any idea about the affairs? What message do you have for other women in similar situations? Lily and 2 security guards formed a barrier around us, getting us safely inside. The federal building was all marble and fluorescent lights, intimidating in its official severity. We were led to a conference room where 2 agents waited, a woman in her 40s named Agent Rodriguez and a man in his 50s named Agent Palmer. Mrs. Chen, Agent Rodriguez said, shaking my hand with a firm, professional grip. Thank you for coming in. I know this is difficult, but we need your full cooperation to build our case against Jennifer Morrison and potentially against your husband. Potentially? I asked sharply. You mean he might not be charged? That depends on what evidence we can gather, Agent Palmer explained. Miss Morrison's embezzlement is clear-cut. We have documentation, witness testimony, bank records. But proving your husband's involvement, proving he knowingly participated or benefited from illegally obtained funds, is more complex. He bought her jewelry with stolen money, I said. She told Marcus Webb she was stealing to support their affair. How is that not enough? It's circumstantial, Agent Rodriguez said carefully. Unless we can prove Robert Chen knew the money came from embezzlement, we can only charge him with the crimes we can directly prove: forgery of your signature, attempted insurance fraud, possibly elder financial abuse. I want him charged with everything possible, I said. Everything you can make stick. I want him to face consequences for every single lie he told, every dollar he stole, every life he destroyed. They spent the next 3 hours taking my statement. Every detail of our finances. Every time Robert had asked me to sign something without reading it carefully. The home equity loan I'd never known about. The increased life insurance I'd never requested. The conversations with neighbors where he'd suggested I was mentally declining. Did you ever give your husband permission to access your individual retirement accounts? Agent Rodriguez asked. No. Those were mine. From my teaching career. He had his own retirement from his engineering work. According to the records we've obtained, Robert withdrew $73,000 from your IRA over the past 18 months. Did you authorize those withdrawals? The room spun. $73,000, on top of everything else. No, I whispered. I didn't know. How much is left? Agent Palmer consulted his notes. Approximately $11,000. Mrs. Chen, I'm sorry. Between the IRA withdrawals, the home equity loan, and the depletion of your joint accounts, your husband has stolen or misappropriated approximately $347,000 of your money over the past 2 years. $347,000. My teaching pension, my retirement savings, the money my parents had left me, the life insurance payout from Robert's father. Money I'd saved carefully for 40 years, living modestly, denying myself luxuries, planning for a secure old age. Gone, stolen by my husband to fund his affair with our daughter-in-law. I couldn't breathe. The room was closing in. David grabbed my hand, but I could barely feel it. Mrs. Chen, are you all right? Agent Rodriguez was beside me, her hand on my shoulder. Do you need water? Should we take a break? No, I managed to gasp. Keep going, I need to know everything. All of it. Don't hide anything from me anymore. They continued. More questions. More devastating revelations. Robert had taken out a credit card in my name, identity theft, and charged $62,000 before maxing it out. He'd listed me as a co-signer on a personal loan I'd never agreed to. He'd even tried to access my Social Security benefits, claiming he needed them to pay for my care in a facility I wasn't in. By the time we finished, it was past noon. I felt hollowed out, emptied of everything except a cold, burning rage. What happens now? I asked. We continue building our case against Miss Morrison, Agent Rodriguez said. She'll likely plead guilty to avoid trial. The evidence is overwhelming. Your husband is a different story. He's hired a very expensive lawyer. Richard Walsh is known for defending white-collar criminals. He'll argue that Robert was manipulated by Jennifer, that he's an elderly man who made poor decisions under emotional duress, that any financial irregularities were misunderstandings, not crimes. He's 75, not senile, I said bitterly. He knew exactly what he was doing. We believe that too, Agent Palmer said. But we need to prove it. Mrs. Chen, would you be willing to testify against your husband in court if it comes to that? Absolutely, I said without hesitation. I'll testify. I'll tell everyone exactly what kind of man Robert Chen is. As we left the federal building, I saw him. Robert, being escorted in by his expensive lawyer, Richard Walsh, a silver-haired man in a suit that probably cost more than my monthly pension check. Our eyes met across the marble lobby. Robert looked terrible. He'd aged a decade overnight. His eyes were red and puffy, his skin gray, his shoulders slumped. He opened his mouth to say something, but Walsh put a hand on his arm, stopping him. Maggie, Robert called out anyway, his voice breaking. Maggie, please, can we talk? 5 minutes? That's all I'm asking. No, I said calmly. Please, I need you to understand. Understand what, Robert? That you spent 28 years lying to me? That you stole $347,000 from our retirement? That you tried to have me declared mentally incompetent so you could steal more? That you were planning to leave me for our son's wife? Which part do you need me to understand? Robert's face crumpled. I never meant to hurt you. I loved you, Maggie. I still love you. Everything just got so complicated, so out of control. You loved me? I laughed, a harsh, ugly sound that echoed through the lobby. Robert, you don't steal from people you love. You don't betray them. You don't try to destroy them. What you did wasn't love. It was sociopathy. Mrs. Chen, Richard Walsh interjected smoothly, I strongly advise you not to speak with my client without legal representation present. Anything said can and will be used in divorce proceedings. Good, I said, because I want him to hear this. Robert, by the end of this week, you will have divorce papers. My lawyer, and yes, I've already hired one, the best one in Boston, will be requesting full forensic accounting of every dollar you've touched in the last 30 years. We will trace every affair, every secret child, every lie you've told, and when we're done, you won't have a penny left. The house will be mine. The retirement accounts will be mine. Everything will be mine. Because that's what happens when you steal from your wife for 3 decades. You can't do that, Robert said desperately. Massachusetts is a no-fault state. Marital assets are split 50-50, 5-7-20-75, the Mansidace. Unless fraud is involved, I interrupted. Unless one spouse systematically stole from the other. Unless there's documentation of financial abuse. My lawyer assures me that under these circumstances, I can get 90% of our marital assets, maybe more. Robert turned to his lawyer, panic in his eyes. Walsh's expression confirmed what I'd just said was true. Maggie, please, Robert begged. Don't do this. We can work something out. We can divide things fairly. Like you've been fair to me? I asked. Like you were fair to Catherine Walsh, who died alone because you were too cowardly to visit her in the hospital? Like you were fair to Emma, who grew up without a father? Like you were fair to David, who just learned his father is sleeping with his wife? Tell me, Robert, what part of your life has been fair to anyone except yourself? I turned to walk away, then stopped. One more thing needed to be said. You know what the saddest part is? I said, looking back at him. I loved you. For 50 years, I genuinely loved you. I would have done anything for you. I did do everything for you. And it was never enough. Because the problem wasn't me, Robert. It was never me. The problem was that you're incapable of loving anyone more than you love yourself. I walked out of that building with my head high, flanked by David and Emma, the children Robert had tried to keep separate, now united against him. Behind me, I heard Robert sobbing, heard his expensive lawyer trying to calm him down, heard the click of cameras as reporters captured his breakdown. I didn't look back. I was done looking back. From now on, I was only looking forward. We went directly from the federal building to the law offices of O'Brien and Associates, located in a sleek glass tower overlooking Boston Harbor. The receptionist, a young woman with perfect posture and a knowing smile, greeted us immediately. "Mrs. Chen, Miss O'Brien is expecting you. Please, follow me." Margaret O'Brien's office was on the 23rd floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the harbor. The woman herself stood as we entered tall, maybe 55, with iron-gray hair cut in a severe bob and eyes like a raptor sizing up prey. "Mrs. Chen," she said, her handshake firm enough to hurt. "Lily Chen Nakamura speaks very highly of you. I watched the videos from yesterday's anniversary party. Quite a performance. You have a spine of steel." "I have a spine made of rage," I corrected. "Steel sounds too noble." Maggie O'Brien smiled a sharp, predatory expression. "Rage works even better. Sit, please. Let's discuss how we're going to financially eviscerate your husband." I liked her immediately. Over the next 2 hours, she walked us through the divorce process in excruciating detail. Massachusetts law, marital asset division, forensic accounting, documentation requirements. She took notes in a leather-bound book, her handwriting precise and efficient. "Here's what we know," she said, consulting her notes. "Married 50 years. All assets are technically marital property, unless we can prove otherwise. Normally, that means a 50-50 split. But you, Mrs. Chen, have extraordinary circumstances working in your favor." She ticked off points on her fingers. 1. Documented financial fraud. Robert forged your signature on loan documents. That's a felony. 2. Systematic theft from your individual retirement accounts without authorization. Also a felony. 3. Attempted insurance fraud trying to increase your life insurance without your knowledge or consent. 4. Evidence of planning to have you declared mentally incompetent through false statements to neighbors and friends. That's elder abuse. 5. He used marital funds to support an extramarital affair, which Massachusetts courts absolutely hate. "How much can I get?" I asked bluntly. "Conservatively, 85% of all marital assets. If we can prove the full extent of his financial misconduct, and I believe we can possibly 95%. We'll also seek restitution for the money he stole from your IRA, full ownership of the marital home, and substantial alimony payments from his pension." "He has a pension?" "A very generous one from his 35 years as an engineering consultant, roughly $7,500 per month. Under normal circumstances, you'd be entitled to half. Given the circumstances, I'm going to argue you deserve 75%. That's $5,600 monthly, plus your own teaching pension. Numbers I could work with. Numbers that meant security. Numbers that meant Robert would spend his remaining years struggling financially while I lived comfortably. Perfect. There's one complication, Maggie O'Brien continued. Jennifer Morrison. Her criminal case could actually help us. If she testifies that Robert knowingly participated in spending embezzled funds, that strengthens our fraud case enormously. But her lawyer will advise her to protect herself first. She might claim Robert manipulated her, seduced her, controlled the financial aspects of their affair. She'll throw him under the bus to save herself, David said flatly. Most likely, O'Brien agreed. Which works in our favor. Every piece of testimony from Jennifer's case becomes ammunition for your divorce. Every admission she makes, every receipt she produces, every text message recovered, all of it helps us paint Robert Chen as a calculating predator who systematically drained his wife's finances to fund his affairs. Affairs, plural, I said. Don't forget Catherine Walsh. 28 years of monthly payments. $672,000 sent to his secret family. O'Brien's eyes lit up like she'd just been handed a gift. Catherine Walsh. Tell me everything about her. Emma spoke up, her voice steady despite the pain in her eyes. Catherine Walsh was my mother. She died last November. Robert Chen is my father, though he never acknowledged me publicly. He sent money every month from 1997 until her death. $2,000, regular as clockwork. From joint accounts? O'Brien asked. Yes, my mother kept records. Every deposit, every date. She documented everything because she was afraid Robert would stop paying, and she'd need proof for court. Do you have those records? In my apartment. Bank statements going back 28 years. My mother was meticulous. She saved everything. Maggie O'Brien looked like Christmas had come early. Emma, those records are worth their weight in gold. With your permission, I'd like to subpoena them for the divorce proceedings. They prove systematic long-term financial deception. A pattern of behavior spanning decades. You have my permission, Emma said. Use whatever you need. He abandoned my mother when she was dying. He refused to even visit her in the hospital. I want him to pay for that, for all of it. O'Brien made more notes. Mrs. Chen, I need to prepare you for what's coming. This will be ugly. Robert's lawyer, Richard Walsh, is notorious for going after his clients' ex-wives. He'll paint you as vindictive, mercenary, trying to profit from your husband's mistakes. He'll claim you're exaggerating the affair, that you're weaponizing normal marital disagreements. He'll try to make you look like the villain. Let him try, I said coldly. I have 200 witnesses who saw the evidence yesterday. I have federal agents investigating his crimes. I have his secret daughter sitting right here. How exactly is he going to make me the villain? He'll find a way, O'Brien warned. Walsh always does. He'll dig into your past, looking for anything he can use. Old arguments, financial decisions you made, anything that can be twisted to suggest you weren't the perfect wife you claim to be. Did you ever refuse Robert anything? Ever deny him money or intimacy? Ever say something cruel in an argument? I thought back over 50 years of marriage. Of course I did. We had arguments. Sometimes I told him no when he wanted to make expensive purchases. Sometimes I was too tired for sex after teaching all day. Sometimes I snapped at him when he left dishes in the sink or forgot to take out the trash. I'm human. I wasn't perfect. That's what Walsh will use, O'Brien said. He'll claim you were cold, controlling, withholding. He'll say Robert turned to other women because you drove him away. He'll make the affair sound like your fault. The injustice of it made my blood boil. So I'm supposed to accept blame because I wasn't a perfect, never-complaining robot wife? No, O'Brien said firmly. You're supposed to prepare yourself for the attack so it doesn't blindside you. When Walsh starts slinging mud, you stay calm, stay factual, stay focused on the money Robert stole and the lies he told. The judges in family court have seen every manipulation tactic in the book. They can spot a Walsh defense from a mile away. As long as you don't let him rattle you, we'll win. I won't let him rattle me, I promised. After yesterday, after standing in front of 200 people and exposing my husband's betrayal, after watching federal agents arrest my daughter-in-law, nothing Richard Walsh says can hurt me worse than I've already been hurt. Good, O'Brien said with satisfaction. Now let's talk timeline. I'll file divorce papers tomorrow morning. Massachusetts requires a 120-day waiting period for no-fault divorces, but given the circumstances, I'm filing on multiple fault grounds: adultery, cruel and abusive treatment, financial misconduct. That potentially shortens the timeline and strengthens your asset claims. How long until it's final? 6 months minimum, possibly up to 18 months, if Robert fights every point. Walsh will drag this out as long as possible, hoping you'll accept a worse settlement just to end the pain. We can't let that happen. You need to prepare yourself for a long battle. 18 months. 18 more months of being legally married to Robert. 18 months of lawyers and courts and fighting over every dollar. 18 months of my life consumed by the wreckage of his betrayal. I'll do whatever it takes, I said. I don't care how long it takes or how hard it gets. I'm not backing down. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, O'Brien said. She pulled out a contract. My retainer is $50,000. My hourly rate is $850. This will be expensive, Mrs. Chen. I won't lie about that, but I'm very good at what I do. I've handled 3 cases similar to yours in the past 5 years, and in each one, my client walked away with over 80% of marital assets. $50,000. I had maybe $20,000 in my personal checking account money. I'd squirreled away from my pension, emergency funds I'd been saving for years. I don't have $50,000, I admitted, shame burning my cheeks. Robert stole most of my retirement savings. I have about $20,000 liquid. The rest is tied up in the house, which is also marital property. I'll pay it, David said immediately. Mom, I have savings. I'll cover the retainer. David, that's your money. Mom, he's my father. His betrayal destroyed my marriage too. Jennifer and I are getting divorced. I'm going to need O'Brien's services anyway. We'll consider this a joint retainer for both our cases. O'Brien looked at David with new interest. You're divorcing Jennifer Morrison? Immediately. I want nothing from her except my freedom. She can keep her embezzled money if there's any left after the federal government takes their share. I just want out. Smart man, O'Brien said approvingly. Given that Jennifer will likely serve prison time, an uncontested divorce should be straightforward. I can handle both cases, yours and your mother's, with some fee consideration for the overlap. Whatever it costs, David said. This family is done being victims. Emma cleared her throat. I have some money too. Not much. My mother left me about $35,000 after her debts were paid. But if it helps, if you need it. No, I said firmly. Emma, you've already lost so much. I won't take your mother's money. You're not taking it, Emma insisted. I'm giving it. For 28 years, Robert sent money to my mother, money that should have been yours. This is just returning what was always yours to begin with. I looked at this young woman, this stranger I'd met yesterday, who'd lost her mother, discovered her father was a monster, and was now offering her inheritance to help me fight him. Why? I asked. Why are you doing this? You don't owe me anything. Because you called me family, Emma said simply. Yesterday, in front of everyone, you introduced me as Robert's daughter. You didn't hide me or deny me or pretend I didn't exist. You gave me what he never did: acknowledgement, recognition, a place in the Chen family story. That's worth more than money. I pulled Emma into a hug. This girl who'd grown up without a father, who'd lost her mother, who'd been a secret her entire life. You are family, I whispered. Whatever happens with Robert, whatever comes next, you're my family now. You and David. We're what's left after he destroyed everything else. When we finally left O'Brien's office, it was nearly 5 o'clock. We'd spent the entire day dealing with lawyers and federal agents, and the legal machinery of justice slowly grinding into motion. I need a drink, David said as we stood on the sidewalk outside the tower. Anyone else need a drink? God, yes, Emma said. We found a small Irish pub 2 blocks away, the kind of place with dark wood and dim lighting, and no judgments. We ordered whiskey Jameson for David, Bushmills for Emma, and after a moment's hesitation, Redbreast for me. Robert had always hated whiskey, said it was a crude drink for crude people. Good. Then it was perfect for me. We toasted to nothing in particular. To survival, maybe? To truth? To the brutal honesty of a day spent cataloging betrayal. What do we do now? Emma asked. I mean, after the lawyers and the courts and everything legal, what do we do about being a family? About figuring out how to actually know each other? We start small, I said. We have dinners together. We tell each other our stories. We learn who we are beyond being Robert Chen's victims. We build something real. I'd like that, Emma said softly. I've never had a big family. It was always just Mom and me. Now I have a brother, and she hesitated, looking at me. A mother-in-law, I finished. That's what you are, technically. Robert's wife. David's mother. Your stepmother, I suppose, though that word doesn't seem right given the circumstances. How about just Maggie? Emma suggested. Can I call you Maggie? I'd be honored, I said. We drank our whiskey and ordered another round. Somewhere between the second and third drink, I realized I was laughing. Actually laughing, genuine and real, for the first time in as long as I could remember. Robert had tried to destroy me. But sitting here in this pub with my son and my husband's secret daughter, drinking whiskey and planning revenge and building something new from the ruins, I wasn't destroyed. I was just beginning. The week that followed the anniversary party was the strangest of my life. I woke up each morning in Emma's tiny apartment, momentarily confused about where I was, then remembering everything with a crash that made my chest physically hurt. But I got up anyway. Every day I got up. Monday morning, the Boston Globe ran a front-page story. Golden anniversary becomes public scandal. Prominent Boston engineer accused of decades of fraud. They'd used a photo from the party, me at the podium, the screen behind me showing Robert and Jennifer at a hotel. I looked fierce in that photo. Righteous, strong. I didn't feel strong. But apparently, I looked it. My phone exploded with messages. Some supportive, some cruel, some from reporters wanting interviews. I ignored most of them, but one made me pause. It was from a woman named Patricia Brennan. Mrs. Chen, you don't know me, but I saw what happened at your anniversary party. My husband did something similar affair with a younger woman, stole from our retirement. I stayed silent, divorced quietly, protected his reputation because I was ashamed. Watching you tell the truth publicly gave me courage to finally tell my own story. Thank you for your bravery. There were dozens of messages like that. Women who'd been betrayed, who'd been stolen from, who'd been made to feel like their pain should be private, their humiliation hidden. Women who said I'd inspired them. If this scene touched your heart, tap, like to let me know it resonated with you. Do you see a glimpse of your own story in theirs? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'm not brave, I told Emma as she read the messages over my shoulder. I'm just angry. Anger that makes you tell the truth instead of hide it? Emma said. That's bravery, Maggie, whether you feel it or not. On Tuesday, I went back to the house, my house, as I was already thinking of it. Lily came with me, along with a locksmith. We changed every lock, every code, every point of entry. Robert's key would no longer work. If he wanted inside, he'd have to break in, which would constitute criminal trespassing. The house felt different now, empty, haunted by 50 years of ghosts, memories that had once been precious and were now poisoned by knowledge. We can sell it, David suggested. Start fresh somewhere else, somewhere without all these memories. I walked through the rooms slowly. The kitchen where I'd cooked thousands of meals. The living room where we'd watched David grow up. The bedroom where I'd slept beside Robert for half a century, never knowing he was living a double life. No, I said finally. I'm not letting him chase me out of my home. He's the one who lied and cheated and stole. He's the one who should lose everything, not me. This house is mine. I earned it. I maintained it. I made it a home while he made it a lie. I'm staying. So we began the process of erasing Robert from the house. His clothes went into garbage bags. David carried them to the curb without ceremony. His workshop in the basement became Emma's art studio. She'd mentioned she liked to paint, so I gave her the space her father had used to hide evidence of his betrayal. His photographs came off the walls. 50 years of carefully curated family images, Robert and me at our wedding, Robert holding baby David, Robert at various anniversaries and holidays and milestones. All of them lies. All of them performances for a camera while behind the scenes, he was stealing and cheating and destroying. I couldn't burn them. David wanted some photos of his father from before he knew the truth, so I boxed them up and put them in the attic. Out of sight, relegated to history. On Wednesday, Jennifer's preliminary hearing was held. David and I attended, sitting in the gallery while Jennifer, wearing an orange prison jumpsuit, stood before a judge. She looked diminished, hair unwashed, makeup gone, the confident architect replaced by a frightened criminal. Her lawyer, a public defender since Jennifer couldn't afford Richard Walsh after the federal government froze her assets, argued for reduced bail. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Carmen Torres, argued against it. Your Honor, Miss Morrison is a flight risk. She has demonstrated a pattern of deception spanning multiple years. She embezzled nearly $400,000 from her employer, conducted an affair with her father-in-law while married, and showed no remorse when confronted. The government believes she would flee the country if given the opportunity. I have nowhere to go, Jennifer cried out. My family won't even talk to me. My friends have abandoned me. I've lost everything. You stole everything, Judge Martinez said coldly. From your employer, from your husband's family, from your own integrity. The court finds the prosecutor's arguments compelling. Bail is denied. You'll remain in custody until trial. Jennifer's sobs echoed through the courtroom as they led her away. I waited to feel satisfaction, vindication, pleasure at seeing her suffer. Instead, I just felt empty, tired, old. She's where she belongs, David said as we left the courthouse. But his voice lacked conviction. He'd loved Jennifer once. Part of him probably still did, despite everything. Love doesn't die just because it should. That evening, Eleanor brought over a casserole, her signature lasagna that she made whenever someone in the neighborhood needed comfort. I've been thinking, Eleanor said as we ate in my kitchen, the one I defended from Robert's ghost, about what you said at the party, about Sarah knowing for 22 years, about Robert trying to have you declared incompetent. Maggie, I think you need to document everything, write it all down. Not for lawyers, you have them for that. Write it for yourself, for processing, for healing. I don't want to relive it, I said automatically. You're already reliving it every night, Eleanor said gently. I can see it in your eyes. You're not sleeping. You're replaying everything, wondering what you missed, how you didn't see it. Writing it down gives it structure, makes it something outside of you instead of something eating you from the inside. That night, after Eleanor left, I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook and pen. Not my computer, something about handwriting felt more honest, more real. I started at the beginning, not my marriage, but before. Who was Margaret Huang before she became Robert Chen's wife? I was 22 when we met. First-generation American, daughter of Chinese immigrants who'd worked themselves to exhaustion running a laundry in Chinatown. I'd been the first in my family to go to college, studying education at UMass Boston, determined to become a teacher. Robert had been 25, already working as an engineer, charming and confident and so different from the boys I'd grown up around. He'd pursued me relentlessly. Flowers, love letters, grand romantic gestures. I'd felt chosen. Special. Lucky. Lucky. I wrote for 3 hours, remembering who I'd been, a young woman with dreams. A teacher who believed education could change lives. A daughter who'd worked 2 jobs to send money home to her aging parents. A person with value beyond being someone's wife. When had I stopped being Margaret Huang and become only Mrs. Robert Chen? Gradually, I realized. Over years of small concessions, giving up my maiden name completely, not even keeping it as a middle name, referring to myself as Robert's wife at social functions, introducing myself as David's mother at school events, defining myself through relationships to others instead of through myself. Robert hadn't taken my identity. I'd surrendered it piece by piece, thinking that's what good wives did. On Thursday, Maggie O'Brien called with an update. Robert's lawyer is pushing for mediation. He wants to settle out of court, avoid a public trial. Walsh is proposing a 60-40 split of assets in your favor, plus modest alimony for 5 years. No, I said immediately. Maggie, it's not a terrible offer. It would end this quickly, let you move on. No, I repeated, my voice steel. Robert doesn't get to buy his way out of consequences. He doesn't get to avoid a trial. I want every detail exposed in court. I want a judge to hear about Catherine Walsh and Emma. I want it on public record that Robert Chen systematically defrauded his wife for 3 decades. I don't care if it takes 18 months. I don't care if it costs every penny I have left. We're going to trial. There was a pause. Then O'Brien laughed, a genuine delighted sound. I was hoping you'd say that. Walsh is going to hate every minute of this trial. Good. Let him suffer too. On Friday afternoon, Sarah finally called. I'd been expecting it, dreading it, preparing for it all week. Maggie, please. I know you don't want to talk to me, but I'm begging you. Let me explain. Let me apologize properly. Let me... Why? I interrupted. Why now, Sarah? You had 22 years to apologize. You had 22 years to tell me the truth. Why does your guilt suddenly matter now? Because I can't live with it anymore, Sarah sobbed. I can't sleep. I can't eat. Every time I close my eyes, I see your face at that party, the betrayal, the pain. And I know I helped cause it. I kept his secrets. I enabled his lies. Maggie, I'm drowning in guilt, and I need you to forgive me. I need you to tell me we're still friends, that I'm not a terrible person, that... Stop, I commanded. Sarah, you're not calling because you want to help me. You're calling because you want me to help you. You want me to absolve your guilt, make you feel better about your choices, tell you that what you did was okay? Well, I won't. What you did wasn't okay. You watched me live a lie for 2 decades. You stood by while Robert manipulated and stole and betrayed. And you did nothing. I thought I was protecting you, Sarah cried. No, I said coldly. You were protecting yourself. You were protecting your comfort, your convenience, your desire not to be the bearer of bad news. You chose the easy path, Sarah, and now you want me to make that choice easy for you retroactively. I won't do it. So that's it? Sarah's voice turned bitter. 50 years of friendship? Gone? Because I made one mistake? One mistake that lasted 22 years, I corrected. Sarah, I might forgive you someday, might. But that day isn't today, and it won't be tomorrow, and it might never come. You need to make peace with that. You need to live with the consequences of your choices, just like I'm living with the consequences of Robert's. I hung up before she could respond. That night, David, Emma, and I had dinner together at the house, our house, the home we were rebuilding from Robert's betrayal. Emma had brought Mr. Whiskers, who immediately claimed the best chair and glared at anyone who dared disturb him. "I got a call from Mom's lawyer today," David said over Emma's homemade chicken soup. "Jennifer wants me to visit her in jail. She says she needs to explain things to me, to make me understand why she did what she did." "Are you going to go?" Emma asked. "No," David said firmly. "There's nothing she can say that would make this make sense. There's no explanation that justifies sleeping with my father, stealing money, planning to have a baby with him while married to me. She made her choices. Now she gets to live with them alone." "Good," I said. "You deserve better than someone who would betray you like that." "So do you, Mom," David said. "So do you." By the end of that first week, I had established a new routine. Wake up at 6, coffee on the porch, write in my journal, meet with lawyers or federal agents as needed. Lunch with David or Emma or Eleanor. Afternoon walks by the Charles River. Dinner as a family, me, David, Emma, sometimes Lily or Eleanor or other friends who were proving themselves loyal. It wasn't the life I'd planned. It wasn't the golden retirement I'd imagined traveling with Robert, spoiling grandchildren who never materialized, growing old together in comfortable companionship. It was better. Because it was honest. Because it was mine. Because every moment of it was built on truth instead of lies. Robert called Saturday morning. I let it go to voicemail. Listened to his message later, his voice broken and pleading. "Maggie, please. I know you hate me. I know you have every right to hate me. But please, can we talk? Not through lawyers. Just us. 50 years has to count for something. Please." I deleted the message without responding. 50 years counted for everything. That's why his betrayal hurt so much. And that's why he deserved nothing from me now. 2 weeks after the anniversary party, I woke to find a news van parked outside my house, then another. By mid-morning, there were 5 camera crews on my street, reporters standing on my lawn, neighbors peeking through curtains. The story had gone national. Elderly teacher exposes husband's decades of betrayal at anniversary party was trending on social media. Video clips from the party recorded on dozens of phones had been viewed millions of times. I'd become a symbol, an icon, a representation of every woman who'd been betrayed and found the courage to fight back. I hated it. "Mrs. Chen," reporters shouted as Lily escorted me to her car for my meeting with O'Brien. "How does it feel to be a viral sensation? Do you have a message for other women in abusive relationships? Are you writing a book? Starting a foundation? What's next for you?" I kept my head down, said nothing, let Lily shield me until we were safely in the car. "This is insane," I said, my hands shaking. "I just wanted to tell the truth at my anniversary party. I didn't want to become some kind of public figure." "Your news, Maggie," Lily said, navigating through the crush of media. "A 78-year-old woman publicly destroying her cheating husband? That's catnip for the media. It's got everything: betrayal, family drama, financial crimes, a secret love child. You're going to be dealing with this for a while." At O'Brien's office, I learned just how bad a while would be. "Good Morning America wants you for an interview," O'Brien said, reading from a list. "So does the Today Show, CNN, Fox News, PBS, NPR, and about 40 podcasts. The New York Times wants to do a feature. Someone from Hollywood called about optioning your story for a limited series." "Absolutely not," I said immediately. "I'm not turning my pain into entertainment." "Maggie, I understand your hesitation," O'Brien said carefully, "but you need to consider the strategic value of controlling your narrative. Right now, Robert's lawyer is quietly shopping his side of the story. Walsh has connections at several major outlets. If you stay silent, Robert gets to paint himself as the victim, the elderly man who made mistakes, who's being crucified by a vindictive wife." "Let him try," I said. "Anyone who watched those videos knows the truth." "Videos can be edited, contextualized, explained away," O'Brien warned. "Walsh is good at his job. He'll find sympathetic journalists who'll write pieces about how you humiliated your husband publicly, how you destroyed his reputation without giving him a chance to defend himself, how your calculated cruelty shows you're not the innocent victim you claim to be." The thought made my blood boil. So I'm supposed to go on television and bare my soul to millions of strangers? Cry on command for ratings? Turn my tragedy into a spectacle? "You're supposed to tell your truth before someone else tells it for you," O'Brien said. One interview, your choice of outlet. You control the questions, you control the narrative, and then you go silent. But Maggie, you need to do it soon, before Walsh's counter-narrative takes hold. I thought about it, about Robert getting to play victim, about other women watching him manipulate public opinion the way he'd manipulated me for 50 years, about the messages I'd received from women who said my courage had helped them. Fine, I said. One interview, but I choose who, and I want final approval over what airs. Done, O'Brien said with satisfaction. I chose PBS. Not for ratings, but for credibility. A long-form interview with a respected journalist named Patricia Williams who'd been covering elder abuse issues for 20 years. We scheduled it for the following week, giving me time to prepare mentally for reliving my trauma for public consumption. But before the interview could happen, something unexpected occurred. On Tuesday morning, I received a visitor. Eleanor knocked on my door looking nervous. Maggie, there's someone here to see you. She says her name is Nicole Santos. She says Eleanor lowered her voice. She says, Robert is her father too. The world tilted. Another daughter? I opened the door to find a woman in her early 40s, Hispanic, with Robert's dark eyes and sharp cheekbones. She held a folder stuffed with documents and photographs. Mrs. Chen, she said, her voice shaking. I'm so sorry to come unannounced. I saw the news coverage of your anniversary party. I saw Emma Walsh. And I realized I wasn't the only one, that Robert did to my mother what he did to Emma's mother. I invited her in because what else could I do? We sat in my living room, me, Nicole, Emma, who'd been helping me reorganize the kitchen, David, who'd stopped by with bagels, and Eleanor, who refused to leave my side. Nicole's story spilled out in a rush. Her mother, Isabella Santos, had been a paralegal at a law firm where Robert did consulting work in the early 2000s. They'd had an affair. Isabella got pregnant. Robert offered money a lump sum of $50,000 if she'd keep quiet and never contact him again. My mother took the money, Nicole said, tears streaming down her face. She was young, scared, alone. She used it to go to nursing school, to build a life for us. But she always told me about my father, said he was a good man who couldn't be with us because of complicated circumstances. I believed her. Until I saw your party videos and realized he wasn't complicated, he was just a coward. When were you born? Emma asked quietly. 2003, July 15th. Emma did the math in her head, her face going pale. That's 6 years after me, which means Robert was still sending money to my mother while he was sleeping with yours. He had 2 secret families running simultaneously. David made a strangled sound. 2? He had 2 other daughters? How many more are there? How many other women? Other children? Other lies? I don't know, Nicole said miserably. That's why I'm here. Mrs. Chen, I need you to know I'm not asking for money. My mother and I did fine without him. But I saw Emma on the news, saw her standing with you, and I thought maybe we're not the only ones. Maybe there are others. And maybe if we all come forward together, Robert can never do this to anyone else again. I looked at Nicole Santos, 42 years old, a nurse practitioner, according to the ID badge she wore, Robert's 3rd child. 3 children. 3 women he'd seduced and abandoned. 3 families he'd built and hidden. How much did your mother receive? I asked. Just the initial $50,000. Robert never paid anything else. My mother was too proud to ask. She said she'd rather struggle honestly than accept money from a man who was ashamed of his own child. Unlike Catherine Walsh, who'd accepted monthly payments for 28 years. Unlike Emma, who'd grown up knowing her father sent money but never love. Nicole had grown up with nothing from Robert except lies her mother told to protect her. I'm sorry, I said to Nicole. I'm sorry you had to learn the truth this way. I'm sorry your mother spent 40 years protecting a man who didn't deserve it. My mother died 2 years ago, Nicole said quietly. Cancer, like Emma's mother. Before she died, she made me promise not to contact Robert, not to disrupt his life. She said he deserved peace in his old age. But Mrs. Chen, after seeing what he did to you, to Emma, to all of us, he doesn't deserve peace. He deserves accountability. Emma crossed the room and took Nicole's hands. You have a sister now. 2 siblings. David and me. We're family, whether Robert acknowledges it or not. Nicole sobbed, and Emma pulled her into a hug. David joined them, and I watched my son embrace his two half-sisters, Robert's children, brought together not by their father's love, but by his betrayal. 3 daughters, I said aloud, the reality settling over me like a weight. 3 women impregnated and abandoned. How much money did he spend over the years? Catherine's payments alone were $672,000, plus $50,000 to you, plus whatever he spent on hotels and gifts and lies. Over $1 million, David said, his voice hollow. Conservative estimate. Over $1 million of your money, Mom, spent on secret families and affairs while you lived modestly, saved carefully, denied yourself luxuries. The doorbell rang. Lily, arriving for our daily security check, stopped short when she saw Nicole. Lily Chen Nakamura, I said. Meet Nicole Santos, Robert's 3rd child. Apparently, my husband was even more productive than we realized. Lily's professional composure cracked for just a moment. 3? There are 3 of them? That we know of so far, I said. Nicole raises a valid question. How many more might there be? How many other women did Robert seduce over 50 years? How many other children might exist, hidden, denied, paid off? I can find out, Lily said immediately, her investigator instincts kicking in. Birth records, paternity suits, women who worked with Robert over the years. If there are more children, I'll find them. Do it, I said. Find them all. Every child, every affair, every lie. I want a complete accounting of Robert Chen's betrayal. Every single person he hurt. Every single life he damaged. As Lily made notes and Nicole shared what details she knew about her mother's brief affair with Robert, my phone buzzed. A text from Maggie O'Brien. Robert's lawyer just filed a motion to seal court records in your divorce. He's claiming the public nature of your accusations has damaged Robert's reputation and mental health. Walsh is arguing that continued public exposure constitutes harassment and emotional abuse. They're trying to gag you, Maggie. We need to respond immediately. I showed the text to David and Emma. He's afraid, Emma said with grim satisfaction. He's afraid of what else we might find, what other secrets might come out. Good, I said. Let him be afraid. Let him lie awake at night wondering when the next revelation will hit. Let him feel 1/10 of the anxiety and fear and uncertainty he put me through. I texted O'Brien back. Fight the motion. I want everything public. Every affair, every child, every dollar. Robert wanted to erase me, make me disappear quietly. Instead, I'm going to make sure his name is remembered forever, just not the way he hoped. Nicole looked at me with something like awe. You're really going to destroy him, aren't you? No, I corrected. I'm going to let him destroy himself. I'm just making sure everyone watches while he does it. That evening, the 5 of us, me, David, Emma, Nicole, and Eleanor, sat in my kitchen eating takeout Chinese food, 3 generations connected by one man's systematic betrayal. A family Robert never intended to create, brought together by his destruction. To honesty, David said, raising his glass of wine. To truth, Emma added. To accountability, Nicole said. To survival, Eleanor said. To freedom, I finished. We clinked glasses, and somewhere across town, Robert Chen was probably meeting with his expensive lawyer, trying to figure out how to contain the damage. He couldn't, because the truth, once released, can't be put back in a box. And I was just getting started. The PBS studio was smaller than I expected. Just a simple set with 2 chairs, soft lighting, and cameras that looked like black eyes staring at me. Patricia Williams sat across from me, 60-something with kind eyes and a notebook full of questions we'd already reviewed. You can stop at any time, she reminded me. If anything becomes too much, we pause. This is your story, Margaret. You control how it's told. David, Emma, and Nicole sat off camera. My new family, my support system, watching as I prepared to expose my old family's lies to millions of viewers. I'm ready, I said, though my hands trembled in my lap. The interview began gently. Patricia asked about my childhood, my parents' laundry in Chinatown, my decision to become a teacher. She asked about meeting Robert, falling in love, building a life together. When did you first suspect something was wrong? Patricia asked. I thought about that question. When had I known deep down that my marriage was built on lies? I didn't suspect, I admitted, not consciously. But looking back now, I can see signs I ignored. Robert was often working late on projects that never seemed to have names. Money would disappear from our accounts, and he'd have explanations, emergency car repairs, helping a colleague in need, investments that didn't pan out. I trusted him. After 50 years, you trust. Tell me about the anniversary party. I walked Patricia through that day, waking at dawn, David's revelation about the affair, Lily's discoveries. The decision to expose everything publicly rather than suffer in private silence. Why public? Patricia asked. Why not handle this quietly, through lawyers and closed-door negotiations? Because Robert wanted me to handle it quietly, I said. He wanted me to disappear. He'd been trying to have me declared mentally incompetent. He'd increased my life insurance. He'd told neighbors I was declining cognitively. He was building a case to either institutionalize me or wait for me to conveniently die. If I'd confronted him privately, he would have manipulated me, gaslit me, made me doubt my own sanity. Going public meant he couldn't lie his way out. The truth had witnesses. Patricia's expression was carefully neutral, professional, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Recognition, maybe, or respect. You've since discovered that Robert fathered children outside your marriage. 3 daughters you never knew existed. How did that feel? How did it feel, like being skinned alive? Like discovering your entire life was a fiction? Like drowning in lies so deep you couldn't find the surface? It felt like dying, I said simply. Not the quick death of a heart attack, but the slow death of realizing you never really existed. I was Mrs. Robert Chen, the devoted wife, the supportive partner. But if Robert was living completely separate lives, multiple lives with other women and children, then who was I? What was our marriage? The answer is nothing. I was nothing but a convenience, a cover story, a domestic servant who also brought in income he could steal. You use the word steal, Patricia noted. Your husband's lawyer has claimed the money taken from joint accounts was Robert's legal right as your spouse. How do you respond? With facts, I said, my voice steady now, anger giving me strength. Robert forged my signature on loan documents. That's a crime. He withdrew money from my individual retirement account without authorization. That's theft. He increased my life insurance without my knowledge. That's fraud. He systematically manipulated financial records to hide money he was sending to secret families and using to fund affairs. Massachusetts law is very clear. Marital assets can be divided in divorce, but fraud, forgery, and theft are crimes regardless of marital status. Patricia leaned forward. There's been some criticism of how you handled the revelation. Some people say publicly humiliating your husband was cruel, that you should have had more compassion for a man who made mistakes. I felt rage burn through me, white-hot and purifying. Mistakes? I repeated. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk at the grocery store. A mistake is being late to dinner. What Robert did wasn't a mistake, it was a systematic, calculated campaign of deception spanning 3 decades. He didn't accidentally father 3 children with 3 different women. He didn't accidentally steal nearly $700,000 from our retirement. He didn't accidentally try to have me declared incompetent so he could control my money. These weren't mistakes. They were choices. Deliberate, repeated choices to betray everyone who trusted him. And the people who say you were cruel to expose him publicly? I say they're more concerned about a man's reputation than about the real harm he caused real people. They're more worried about him feeling embarrassed than about me being defrauded. They think a woman should suffer in silence to protect a man's dignity. Well, I spent 50 years protecting Robert's dignity. I'm done. His dignity isn't worth my suffering. If this part touched something deep inside you, hit that like button so I know it reached you. Do you see your own reflection in this character's journey? Tell me in the comments your story might just inspire someone else. Patricia paused, checking her notes. Let's talk about the aftermath. You've discovered Robert has 3 daughters, Emma Walsh, 28, Nicole Santos, 42, and potentially others. How has your relationship with these young women developed? I looked off camera at Emma and Nicole, my husband's secret children who'd become my family. They're victims too, I said. Emma grew up knowing her father existed but being told she couldn't acknowledge him publicly. Nicole was given money to go away and never contact Robert again. Both lost their mothers to cancer recently. Both spent their entire lives believing their father was a good man in difficult circumstances, only to discover he was just a coward who prioritized his own comfort over his children's well-being. I was angry at first, angry that they existed, that they were evidence of Robert's betrayal. But that anger was misdirected. They didn't ask to be born. They didn't ask for a father who would deny them. Robert created this situation. Robert hurt all of us. So now we're healing together. Have you spoken with Robert since the anniversary party? No. He's called, texted, tried to reach me through mutual friends. His messages say he loves me, that he's sorry, that if I just give him a chance to explain, I'll understand. But there's nothing to explain. I understand perfectly. He spent 50 years lying to me, stealing from me, and planning to discard me when I became inconvenient. What explanation could possibly make that acceptable? Patricia glanced at her notes again. Robert's attorney has released a statement. Would you like to respond? She handed me a printed sheet. I read Richard Walsh's carefully crafted words. Robert Chen is a 75-year-old man who made mistakes in his marriage, as many people do. His wife's calculated public humiliation executed with premeditation on what should have been a celebration of their 50 years together shows a vindictive cruelty that raises questions about her own behavior during their marriage. Robert is devastated by his wife's actions and hopes that, in time, they can find a path to forgiveness and reconciliation. He asks for privacy as he navigates this difficult period and seeks mental health treatment for the trauma of his public persecution. I set the paper down slowly, feeling my blood pressure rise. Trauma of his public persecution, I repeated. Robert traumatized himself by lying for 50 years. I simply made sure people knew the truth. And forgiveness? Reconciliation? Does Robert think if he says the right words, performs the right amount of contrition, I'll just forget that he tried to have me institutionalized? That he stole my retirement savings? That he fathered multiple children while married to me? What would you say to Robert if he were here now? Patricia asked. I looked directly into the camera, knowing Robert would watch this. Knowing he'd see my face, hear my words, understand that the woman he'd manipulated for 50 years was gone forever. Robert, you had 50 years to tell me the truth. You chose lies every single day. You chose to hurt me, to steal from me, to plan my erasure. You made your choices. Now you get to live with the consequences. And no amount of expensive lawyers or sympathetic media manipulation will change the fact that you're exactly what your actions prove you to be: a fraud, a thief, and a coward. I don't forgive you. I don't want to reconcile. I want you to spend whatever years you have left understanding that you destroyed the best thing in your life, a woman who loved you unconditionally because you were too selfish and too weak to deserve that love. The studio was silent. Patricia's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Margaret, what's next for you? I thought about that question. What comes after your entire life implodes? After everything you believed turns out to be fiction? I'm building something new, I said. A life based on truth instead of lies. A family chosen instead of assigned. I'm 78 years old. I probably don't have decades left. But however much time I have, I'm going to spend it being honest, living authentically, refusing to shrink myself to make anyone else comfortable. Robert took 50 years from me through deception. He doesn't get another minute. After the cameras stopped rolling, Patricia hugged me a professional line she clearly didn't usually cross, but the emotion of the interview had affected her too. You're remarkable, she said. Truly remarkable. I've been covering elder abuse for 20 years, and I've never seen someone fight back with such strength and clarity. I'm not strong, I said. I'm just too angry to quit. The interview aired 2 days later. Within hours, it had been viewed over 5 million times online. Social media exploded with support number Team Maggie trended for 48 hours. Women's organizations reached out wanting me to speak at events. Publishers offered book deals. A senator's office called asking if I'd testify before Congress about elder financial abuse. But there was backlash too. Think pieces appeared arguing I'd gone too far, that public humiliation was never justified, that I was weaponizing victimhood for attention and sympathy. Anonymous accounts called me bitter, vindictive, a gold digger who'd trapped a good man and was now destroying him for profit. The cruelest comments came from people claiming Robert was the real victim, that I'd probably been a terrible wife, cold and controlling, that he'd sought comfort elsewhere because I'd driven him to it. Don't read the comments. Emma begged, finding me at my laptop at 2 in the morning, scrolling through vitriol from strangers. They don't know you. They don't know what happened. They're saying I deserved it, I whispered. That I must have done something to make Robert cheat. That it's my fault he stole from me. People say horrible things when they're scared, Nicole said, appearing in my kitchen doorway. She'd moved into my guest room temporarily, her apartment lease was ending, and I'd offered her a place to stay while she looked for something new. They see your strength and it terrifies them. Because if you can stand up to 50 years of betrayal, what's their excuse for accepting less? 3 days after the interview aired, Robert held a press conference. Against his lawyer's advice, apparently, but Richard Walsh stood grimly beside him as Robert faced cameras and reporters. He looked terrible, gaunt, aged, diminished. He'd lost at least 20 pounds. His expensive suit hung on him like a shroud. "I want to apologize," Robert said, reading from a prepared statement. "To my wife Margaret, to my son David, to Emma and Nicole, the daughters I should have acknowledged years ago. I made terrible mistakes. I hurt people I loved. I betrayed trust and violated vows. There's no excuse for what I did." He paused, looking directly into the camera with tears streaming down his face. "But I want people to know I'm not a monster. I'm a flawed man who made terrible choices. And Margaret, if you're watching, I'm sorry. I'm so deeply, truly sorry. I love you. I've always loved you. Can we please talk? Can we please try to find a way forward?" I watched the press conference with David, Emma, and Nicole. When it ended, I picked up my phone and texted Maggie O'Brien. "Reject any settlement offers. We're going to trial. I want a judge to hear everything. Every lie, every theft, every betrayal. Robert wants forgiveness? He can ask God. I'm done." The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. 6 months after the anniversary party, I sat in Suffolk County Family Court, watching Robert take the witness stand. The courtroom was packed, journalists in the back rows, sketch artists capturing every moment since cameras weren't allowed, and a gallery full of spectators who'd lined up at dawn for seats to the most sensational divorce trial Boston had seen in decades. Judge Sandra Morrison, no relation to Jennifer's family, though the coincidence had required disclosure, presided with the stern efficiency of someone who'd seen every manipulation tactic in the book and was immune to them all. Robert looked smaller now. 7 months of stress and public condemnation had carved years into his face. His expensive suit, a different one than the press conference, but equally well-tailored courtesy of money from sources I was determined to trace, hung on his diminished frame. Richard Walsh stood to question his client, ready to present the narrative they'd carefully constructed. Robert as the flawed but fundamentally decent man who'd made mistakes, who was sorry, who deserved compassion rather than destruction. "Mr. Chen," Walsh began, his voice smooth and practiced, "can you tell the court about your 50-year marriage to Margaret?" "It was the foundation of my life," Robert said, his voice trembling with what was meant to sound like genuine emotion. "Maggie and I built everything together, raised our son, created a home, supported each other through decades of challenges. I loved her. I still love her with everything in me." "And yet you engaged in extramarital affairs," Walsh said, stating the obvious to control the narrative. "Can you explain to the court why that happened?" Robert took a shaky breath, and I watched him perform, because that's what it was, a performance carefully rehearsed. "I don't have a good excuse," Robert said. "I was weak, selfish. I sought validation outside my marriage when I should have worked on issues with my wife. The affairs with Catherine Walsh and Isabella Santos were mistakes I've regretted every day since. As for Jennifer," he paused, looked down, "that was a moment of profound weakness during a vulnerable time in my life. My wife had become distant, cold. Our marriage had lost its warmth. I'm not saying that justifies what I did, but—" "Objection!" Maggie O'Brien was on her feet. "Your Honor, the witness is attempting to blame his victim for his own criminal behavior." "Sustained," Judge Morrison said dryly. "Mr. Chen, stick to your actions, not editorial commentary about your wife's alleged coldness." I sat rigid in my chair, David on one side, Emma on the other. Nicole was in the gallery behind us, my new family, arranged in solidarity. Walsh continued. "Mr. Chen, let's discuss the financial allegations. Your wife claims you stole nearly $700,000 from joint accounts and her individual retirement savings. What's your response?" I never stole anything, Robert said, looking directly at me for the first time. Everything I took was from our joint accounts money we both had legal access to. Yes, I used some of it for purposes Maggie didn't know about, but it wasn't theft. It was marital funds used by one spouse without the other's knowledge. That's not a crime, it's a marriage dispute. And the forged signatures on loan documents? Robert shifted uncomfortably. I may have signed Maggie's name on some paperwork when she was too busy to deal with it. She'd done the same for me over the years, signed my name on permission slips for David's school trips, on tax returns when I was traveling for work. It was a pattern in our marriage. We trusted each other to handle administrative details. The lie was so smooth, so reasonable sounding. If you didn't know the truth, you might even believe him. What about the attempts to have your wife declared mentally incompetent? Walsh asked. I was genuinely concerned, Robert said, his voice breaking. Maggie is 78. I'd noticed memory lapses, confusion, mood swings. I talked to neighbors and friends because I was worried about her well-being. When she reacted so violently to discovering my affair, planning that elaborate public humiliation, turning our anniversary party into a spectacle, it confirmed my fears that something was wrong with her mental state. A healthy person doesn't do what Maggie did. A healthy person handles marital problems privately, with dignity. I felt Emma's hand grip mine under the table, felt David's body go rigid with rage beside me. This was Walsh's strategy: paint me as the crazy, vindictive wife, whose extreme reaction proved Robert's concerns about my mental health were justified. Your witness, Walsh said to O'Brien, confidence radiating from every pore. Maggie O'Brien stood slowly, adjusting her reading glasses, consulting her notes with the casual air of someone who was about to destroy her opponent and knew it. Mr. Chen, she began, you testified that you loved your wife with everything in you. Is that correct? Yes, Robert said firmly. And yet you conducted an affair with Catherine Walsh from 1993 to 1998. 5 years. Is that love? It was a mistake. A 5-year mistake? O'Brien's eyebrows rose. That's approximately 1,825 days of mistakes, assuming you saw Catherine weekly. That's quite a sustained error in judgment. Objection, Walsh said wearily. Argumentative. Sustained, but miss. O'Brien, make your point. Mr. Chen, you sent Catherine Walsh $2,000 every month for 28 years, totaling $672,000. Where did that money come from? Our joint accounts, Robert admitted. Did you tell your wife you were sending this money? No. Did you tell her Catherine existed? No. Did you tell her your daughter Emma existed? No. So for 28 years, more than half your marriage, you systematically concealed the existence of a child and a financial obligation from your wife. Does that sound like trust to you? Robert's jaw clenched. It was complicated. I imagine it was, O'Brien said dryly. Let's discuss Isabella Santos. You had an affair with her in 2002? Yes. Resulting in the birth of your daughter Nicole in 2003? Yes. And you paid Isabella $50,000 to keep quiet about your paternity? I helped her financially, yes. You paid her to disappear, O'Brien corrected. You offered money in exchange for her silence and her agreement never to contact you again. Isn't that accurate? I was trying to do the right thing. The right thing would have been not sleeping with her in the first place, wouldn't it? O'Brien didn't wait for an answer. Mr. Chen, let's talk about Jennifer Morrison. When did your affair with your daughter-in-law begin? Robert looked physically ill. November 2024. 6 months before your 50th anniversary. You've testified the affair happened because your marriage had lost its warmth. But Mr. Chen O'Brien pulled out a document. I have here your credit card statements from October 2024, 1 month before the affair allegedly began. There's a charge for $1,500 at a jewelry store. The purchase was a diamond bracelet, which you gave to your wife for your 49th anniversary. The card you wrote with it, which we recovered from your home office, says, and I quote, "To my darling Maggie, the love of my life, my everything. Here's to 50 more years. All my love, Robert." She held up the card for the court to see. Robert had gone pale. Does that sound like a marriage that had lost its warmth, Mr. Chen? I was trying to fix things. Or were you covering your tracks? O'Brien interrupted. Performing the role of devoted husband in public while already planning your affair with Jennifer? In fact, I have text messages recovered from Jennifer's phone messages that predate this anniversary gift where she writes to you, "Can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. When Maggie's gone, we can finally be together." That was October 15th, 2024. Before you bought your wife an anniversary gift promising 50 more years, you were already planning a future without her. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Morrison gavelled for silence. "Mr. Chen," O'Brien continued relentlessly, "you testified that you may have signed your wife's name on some documents. Let's be specific. Did you forge your wife's signature on a home equity loan application for $85,000? I needed money for." "Yes or no, Mr. Chen? Did you forge her signature?" "Yes." "But did you forge her signature on documents withdrawing $73,000 from her individual retirement account? I thought she wouldn't mind." "Yes or no?" "Yes." "Did you attempt to increase your wife's life insurance policy from $1 million to $5 million without her knowledge?" "I was concerned about her health." "Yes or no, Mr. Chen?" "Yes," Robert said, his voice barely audible. "And did you tell neighbors and friends that your wife was experiencing cognitive decline, memory loss, and confusion, all false statements designed to build a case for having her declared mentally incompetent?" "I was genuinely worried." "Your Honor, I'd like to introduce Exhibit 47, O'Brien said, holding up another document. "This is an email from Robert Chen to his attorney, Richard Walsh, dated March 1st of this year, 2 months before the anniversary party. In it, Robert writes, "I need to establish Margaret is incompetent so I can access her accounts and force her into assisted living. This needs to happen before she discovers the Jennifer situation. Can you recommend a compliant psychiatrist?" The courtroom exploded. Judge Morrison gavelled repeatedly for order. Richard Walsh looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. And Robert looked like a man watching his carefully constructed lies crumble in real time. "That's out of context," Robert shouted. "I was asking hypothetically. Hypothetically planning to institutionalize your wife so you could steal the rest of her money?" O'Brien's voice dripped contempt. "Mr. Chen, this email is dated, time-stamped, and authenticated by a forensic IT specialist. There's nothing hypothetical about it. You were actively planning to have your wife declared incompetent 2 months before your anniversary. That's not love. That's not concern. That's premeditated elder abuse." Walsh was objecting, but his heart wasn't in it. The email was devastating. Proof that Robert had been planning to erase me months before I'd discovered the truth. "Mr. Chen," O'Brien said, "moving in for the kill, you've testified repeatedly about your love for your wife. But love doesn't forge signatures. Love doesn't steal retirement savings. Love doesn't father multiple children outside a marriage while maintaining the facade of fidelity. Love doesn't plan to institutionalize a healthy woman to access her money. So let me ask you directly, did you ever actually love Margaret Chen? Or was she simply convenient, a source of income, domestic labor, and social respectability while you lived your real life elsewhere?" Robert stared at her, mouth opening and closing, no words coming out. "Answer the question, Mr. Chen," Judge Morrison commanded. I loved her," Robert finally stammered. I also loved, I had needs." "You had wants," O'Brien corrected coldly. "You wanted other women. You wanted their money. You wanted freedom without consequences. And you were willing to destroy a woman who devoted 50 years to you to get what you wanted. No further questions." As Robert left the witness stand, broken and exposed, he looked at me one last time, not with love or remorse or even real guilt. With resentment. He resented me for exposing him, for refusing to go quietly, for fighting back. And in that moment I knew with absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice. Robert Chen didn't deserve my forgiveness. He barely deserved my contempt. The trial continued, but the damage was done. Over the next 2 days, O'Brien systematically destroyed every defense Walsh tried to mount. She brought Emma and Nicole to testify about their abandonment. She brought bank officials to confirm the forgeries. She brought the IT specialist who'd recovered the damning email about institutionalizing me. She brought Eleanor and other neighbors to testify that I'd shown 0 signs of cognitive decline, that Robert's claims had been lies. And she brought me. On the final day of testimony, I took the stand and told my story one more time, not with tears or histrionics, but with calm, factual clarity. 50 years of devotion, 50 years of trust, 50 years of building a life with a man who'd been systematically destroying me from the inside. Mrs. Chen, O'Brien asked gently, after everything you've learned, do you regret your 50-year marriage? I thought about that question carefully. I regret that it was built on lies, I said. But I don't regret the person I was during those years. I was a good wife, a good mother, a good teacher. I lived honestly, even if Robert didn't. I have nothing to be ashamed of. He does. What do you want from this divorce? Justice, I said simply. I want Robert to face consequences for his crimes. I want financial restitution for what he stole. I want legal acknowledgement that what he did was wrong, not just morally wrong, but criminally wrong. And I want every woman who's been told to suffer in silence, to protect her husband's reputation at the cost of her own dignity, to know that she doesn't have to, that she can fight, that she can win. 3 days later, Judge Morrison issued her ruling. I won everything. Judge Sandra Morrison took 15 minutes to read her ruling. 15 minutes that felt like 15 hours, sitting in that courtroom with my heart hammering against my ribs, David's hand gripping mine so tightly I lost circulation, Emma and Nicole behind us barely breathing. In the matter of Chen v. Chen, Judge Morrison began, her voice crisp and authoritative, this court finds that Robert Chen engaged in systematic financial fraud, elder abuse, and criminal deception spanning multiple decades. The evidence presented, including forged signatures, unauthorized withdrawals from retirement accounts, attempted insurance fraud, and documented planning to have the petitioner declared mentally incompetent, demonstrates a pattern of behavior that goes far beyond typical marital discord. Robert sat rigid beside Richard Walsh, his face gray as concrete. Mr. Chen's testimony that he may have signed documents without his wife's knowledge is contradicted by forensic evidence showing deliberate forgery. His claims of concern for his wife's mental health are undermined by his own email, stating his intent to institutionalize her to access her finances. His assertion that marital funds were used appropriately is disproven by evidence of systematic concealment and misappropriation totaling approximately $700,000. Judge Morrison looked directly at Robert, and I saw contempt flash in her eyes. This court has presided over hundreds of divorce cases. I have seen infidelity, financial disagreements, and irreconcilable differences of every variety. But rarely have I seen such calculated, prolonged, and comprehensive betrayal as that perpetrated by Mr. Chen against his wife of 50 years. She turned to her formal ruling. The court awards Margaret Chen 92% of all marital assets, including full ownership of the marital home, all retirement accounts and investment portfolios. Mr. Chen is ordered to pay restitution of $672,000, representing the money sent to Catherine Walsh over 28 years, plus $73,000 withdrawn from Mrs. Chen's IRA, plus $85,000 from the fraudulently obtained home equity loan. Total restitution, $830,000. Robert made a strangled sound. Walsh put a warning hand on his arm. Additionally, Judge Morrison continued, Mr. Chen is ordered to pay permanent alimony of $6,000 per month from his engineering pension, plus 75% of any Social Security benefits to which Mrs. Chen would be entitled as his spouse. Mr. Chen will also be responsible for all legal fees incurred by Mrs. Chen in this proceeding, totaling approximately $220,000 to date. I did the math in my head, years of managing household finances, making the calculations automatic. Robert would be left with almost nothing. His pension decimated by alimony payments, his savings drained by restitution and legal fees, his assets stripped to pay for his decades of betrayal. Perfect. Furthermore, the judge said, this court is referring the matter of forgery, fraud, and elder financial abuse to the district attorney's office for potential criminal prosecution. While this is a civil proceeding, the evidence suggests criminal behavior that warrants investigation. Your Honor, we intend to appeal, Walsh said, standing quickly. That's your right, Counselor, Judge Morrison said dryly, but I don't recommend it. The evidence in this case is overwhelming, and an appeal will only generate more legal fees your client can no longer afford. This divorce is granted. Mrs. Chen is no longer married to Mr. Chen. This court is adjourned. The gavel fell. It was over. 50 years of marriage ended with the strike of wood against wood. I stood on shaking legs, David and Emma supporting me on either side. Around us, the courtroom erupted, journalists rushing for the exits to file their stories, spectators talking excitedly, Walsh furiously whispering to Robert, who sat slumped in his chair like a puppet with cut strings. "You did it, Mom," David whispered. "You won." But I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty, hollow, like I'd been fighting so hard for so long that now, with the battle over, I didn't know how to be anything except angry. "Come on," Emma said gently. "Let's get you out of here." We pushed through the crowd, Lily and her security team clearing a path. Reporters shouted questions I didn't answer. Camera flashes made spots dance in my vision. Then we were outside in the November cold, Boston's gray sky pressing down like a weight. Maggie O'Brien caught up with us on the courthouse steps. "Maggie, that was the most comprehensive victory I've seen in 30 years of family law. You should feel proud." "I feel tired," I admitted. "Tired and old and ready for this to be over." "It is over," O'Brien assured me. "Walsh might file an appeal, but it won't go anywhere. The ruling is airtight. Robert will pay restitution or face contempt charges. You've won everything you wanted. Everything except the 50 years Robert had stolen. Everything except the life I'd thought I was building. Everything except the trust and love and partnership I'd believed in. But yes, I'd won." 2 weeks later, Jennifer Morrison stood before a different judge in federal court for her sentencing hearing. David, Emma, Nicole, and I sat in the gallery watching as the woman who'd destroyed my son's marriage and tried to steal mine faced justice. Jennifer had lost everything, her architecture license revoked, her firm's partners suing her for damages, her parents in the gallery behind us, broken and aged by shame. Judge Morrison, a different Morrison, federal court this time reviewed the case with visible distaste. "Miss Morrison," the judge began, "you stole $382,000 from your employer and colleagues. You used those stolen funds to finance an affair with your husband's father, to purchase luxury items, and to support a lifestyle you couldn't legitimately afford. You've shown no remorse, no understanding of the harm you caused. Your pre-sentencing report indicates you blame your victims for your choices, claiming your husband drove you to infidelity through neglect, claiming your father-in-law manipulated you into the affair." Jennifer stood in her orange jumpsuit, shoulders hunched, hair limp, all her beauty and confidence stripped away by months in jail awaiting sentencing. "Your Honor," Jennifer's public defender said, "my client has suffered enormously already, her reputation destroyed, her marriage ended, her career ruined. She asks for mercy, for a chance to rebuild her life and make amends." "Mercy," the judge repeated. "Miss Morrison, did you show mercy to the 3 partners at your firm who'd given you opportunity and trust? Did you show mercy to Margaret Chen, whose husband and money you tried to steal? Did you show mercy to David Chen, who worked 80-hour weeks to support you while you betrayed him with his own father?" Jennifer said nothing. "This court sentences you to 5 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. You will pay full restitution to Morrison Design Associates in the amount of $382,000. You will pay an additional $50,000 in fines. And Miss Morrison," the judge's voice turned cold, "I strongly suggest you use your time in prison to develop something you currently lack, a conscience." Jennifer crumpled, sobbing, as marshals led her away. Her mother wailed. Her father sat stone-faced, a federal judge watching his daughter's sentence like any common criminal. I felt David tense beside me, his body rigid with conflicting emotions. He'd loved Jennifer once. Part of him probably still did. Watching her destroyed even by her own actions had to hurt. "You okay?" I whispered. "I don't know," David admitted. "She deserves this. I know she deserves this, but it still hurts to watch." "That's because you're a good person," Emma said, leaning forward from the row behind us. "You feel empathy even for people who don't deserve it. That's not weakness. That's humanity." As we left the courthouse, Jennifer's mother, Charlotte Morrison, intercepted us. Her face was ravaged by tears, her expensive clothes rumpled, all her junior league polish stripped away by the horror of watching her daughter sentenced to prison. "Mrs. Chen," she said, her voice breaking, "please, can we talk? Just for a moment?" I wanted to refuse. Wanted to walk past her the way she and her husband had walked past me at social functions for 20 years, never knowing or caring who I really was beyond Robert's wife. But Emma touched my arm. "Give her a chance, Maggie. She's a mother too." We found a quiet corner in the courthouse lobby. Charlotte Morrison twisted a tissue in her hands, makeup smeared, dignity shattered. "I didn't know," she said desperately. "About the embezzlement, about the affair with Robert, about any of it. Jennifer told us she was successful, that her firm was thriving, that her marriage was happy. We believed her. We believed our daughter. I believed my husband for 50 years," I said. "Belief doesn't change what's true." I know that. But Mrs. Chen, Maggie, I need you to understand. We raised Jennifer to be ambitious, to be successful, to reach for more, but we never taught her to lie. We never taught her to steal. We never taught her that other people's pain was acceptable collateral damage for her happiness. That's not who we are. That's not what we wanted for her. "What do you want from me?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I don't know," Charlotte admitted. "Forgiveness? Understanding? I needed you to know we're sorry for what she did to you, to your son, to your family. If we'd known, we would have stopped her. We would have made her face consequences before it got this far." I looked at this broken mother, this woman who'd spent her life building social standing and respectability, now watching it crumble because her daughter turned out to be a criminal. "Mrs. Morrison, your daughter is an adult. She made her own choices. You're not responsible for her crimes, but you are responsible for how you respond now. If you want to help Jennifer, don't enable her. Don't make excuses for her. Don't let her paint herself as the victim. Make her own her choices. Make her do the hard work of becoming someone who wouldn't make those choices again. That's what real love looks like." Charlotte nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. And Mrs. Chen? For what it's worth, you're an inspiration. What you did at that anniversary party, standing up and telling the truth even though it destroyed you, that took more courage than I've ever had." After she left, David looked at me with something like awe. "Mom, how do you do that? How do you show compassion to people who were part of hurting you?" "Because Charlotte Morrison didn't hurt me," I said. "Jennifer did. Robert did. Charlotte's just another victim trying to make sense of the wreckage. And David, if I let this make me bitter and hateful to everyone, then Robert wins. He doesn't get to take my humanity along with everything else he stole." That night, we had dinner at my house, the house that was legally, completely, undeniably mine now. David, Emma, Nicole, Lily, Eleanor, and Marcus Webb, who'd become an unexpected friend through our shared betrayal by Jennifer. "To justice," Marcus said, raising his glass of wine. "To truth," Eleanor added. "To family," Emma said, looking around the table at this strange, broken, beautiful collection of people Robert and Jennifer had inadvertently brought together. "To survival," Nicole said. "To freedom," David said. "To new beginnings," I said. "To second chances. To building something honest from the ashes of lies." We clinked glasses and ate Emma's homemade lasagna and laughed at Eleanor's stories and planned Thanksgiving just 2 weeks away, our first holiday, as this new, chosen family. Later, after everyone had left, I stood in my living room, mine alone now, and looked at the empty spaces where Robert's presence had been. The chair where he'd read his paper, the shelf where his engineering books had lived, the wall where his photographs had hung. All of it gone, erased, like he'd never existed, except he had existed. For 50 years, he'd been the center of my life. And now there was just space. Empty space waiting to be filled with something new. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Maggie, it's Robert. Please. I know you hate me. I know you have every right to. But can we talk? Just once? I need to understand what happens now. I need to know if there's any path to forgiveness." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I blocked the number. Robert had 50 years to talk to me honestly. He'd chosen lies every day. He didn't get any more of my time. I was done looking back. The future, whatever it held, was mine now. And that was enough. 1 year after the anniversary party that changed everything, I woke up on a sunny June morning in my house. My house, paid for, owned completely, filled with nothing but truth and the people I'd chosen to love. I was 79 years old, divorced, living on a comfortable income from alimony, my teaching pension, and carefully managed investments. And for the first time in 6 decades, I was defining myself not by who I was to someone else, but by who I was to myself. Margaret Huang Chen. Teacher, mother, survivor, fighter, free. The kitchen smelled like coffee and cinnamon rolls, Emma's recipe, learned from her mother, Catherine. Emma had moved into the guest room permanently 6 months ago after deciding her tiny Somerville apartment was too lonely. Nicole visited every weekend, often bringing her new boyfriend, a kind paramedic named James who looked at her like she hung the moon. David was healing too, slowly. He'd started dating a pediatric nurse from his hospital named Rachel, a widow with 2 teenage daughters who treated David with the respect and honesty Jennifer never had. Last week, he'd brought her to dinner, nervous as a teenager, and I'd watched him laugh genuinely for the first time in over a year. My family. Not the family I'd planned, but the family I'd found in the ruins of Robert's betrayal. The doorbell rang at 9 o'clock. I opened it to find someone I never expected to see again. Sarah Kim. She looked terrible. Thin, aged, her hair more gray than black now, dark circles under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and crushing guilt. "Maggie," she said, her voice hoarse. "I know you don't want to see me. I know you told me to leave you alone, but I'm dying." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The doctors give me maybe 3 months. And Maggie, I can't die without trying one more time to apologize, to make you understand why I kept Robert's secrets." To her voice broke completely, to ask for forgiveness before I face whatever comes next. I stood in the doorway, this woman who'd been my best friend for 50 years, who'd betrayed me for 22 of them, now dying and desperate for absolution. Every instinct screamed at me to slam the door, to let her die with her guilt, to deny her the peace she was seeking. But I thought about what I'd told Charlotte Morrison. If I let this make me bitter and hateful to everyone, then Robert wins. "Come on," I said quietly. We sat in my living room, cups of tea neither of us drank cooling on the coffee table. Sarah twisted a tissue in her hands, exactly like Charlotte Morrison had done at the courthouse. "Why?" I asked simply. "Why did you keep his secrets for 22 years, Sarah? What did he offer you? What did he threaten you with?" "Nothing," Sarah whispered. "That's the worst part. He didn't bribe me or threaten me, he convinced me." That first time I saw him with Emma at the Children's Museum, when I confronted him, he broke down crying, said he'd made a terrible mistake with Catherine, said you had a weak heart and the shock might kill you, said Emma was innocent and deserved financial support even if he couldn't publicly acknowledge her. He made it sound like keeping the secret was the compassionate thing to do, the loving thing. And I believed him. For 22 years? Every time I thought about telling you, I'd remember what he said about your heart, about the stress killing you, and I'd convince myself that I was protecting you by staying silent. But Maggie Sarah looked at me with eyes full of agony. The truth is, I was protecting myself. I didn't want to be the bearer of bad news. I didn't want you to be angry at me for telling you. I didn't want to deal with the fallout of your marriage imploding. So I chose comfort over courage. I chose easy over right. And I've been living with that choice, destroying me from the inside for 22 years. "You could have told me at any point," I said, my voice hard. "When you found out about Jennifer. When you saw them together at restaurants. When Robert was planning to have me declared incompetent. You had dozens of chances to do the right thing." "I know," Sarah sobbed. "I know, and I hate myself for it. Maggie, I've lost everything. My other friends found out I kept Robert's secrets, and they all left me. My daughter won't speak to me, she says. I'm a coward who enabled abuse. I'm dying alone because I made the wrong choice over and over for 2 decades. And the only thing I want before I die is for you to tell me," her voice dropped to a desperate whisper. "Tell me I'm not a monster. Tell me you understand why I did it. Tell me you forgive me." I sat there looking at this dying woman who wanted me to make her comfortable, to ease her guilt, to let her die believing she was fundamentally good despite fundamentally bad choices. And I realized something. Forgiveness wasn't about her. It was about me. "Sarah," I said slowly, "I can't give you what you're asking for. I can't tell you I understand why you enabled Robert's abuse for 22 years. I can't tell you your choices were okay. They weren't. You watched me live a lie, and you said nothing. You prioritized your own comfort over my right to truth. That's not something I can just forgive because you're dying." Sarah's face crumpled. "But," I continued, "I can tell you this, you're not a monster. You're a flawed human being who made terrible choices out of weakness and fear. You're not evil, you're just a coward, like you said. And Sarah, I've learned this year that cowardice is incredibly common. Most people, when faced with the choice between truth and comfort, choose comfort. You're not unique in that. So you won't forgive me? I thought about that question, really thought about it. About what forgiveness meant. About whether Sarah deserved it. About whether I needed to give it. I won't forget what you did, I said finally. I won't pretend it didn't hurt me or that your betrayal wasn't real. But Sarah, I also won't carry hatred for you into whatever years I have left. You're dying. You're suffering. You're facing the consequences of your choices. That's enough. I don't need to add to your punishment. So yes, I forgive you not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Sarah wept deep, racking sobs that shook her frail body. Thank you, she gasped. Thank you, Maggie. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but thank you. You're right, I agreed. You don't deserve it. But I'm not giving it for you. I'm giving it for me. Sarah died 6 weeks later. I attended her funeral, stood in the back, said nothing. Her daughter saw me there and nodded once, a small acknowledgement that I'd given her mother peace in her final days. That was enough. In September, Robert showed up at my house unannounced. He looked like a ghost of the man I'd married, gaunt, stooped, aged beyond his 76 years. He stood on my porch, and I almost didn't recognize him. Maggie, he said, his voice cracking. Please, just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. No, I said, starting to close the door. I'm homeless, he blurted out. The restitution payments, the alimony, the legal fees, I lost everything. I'm living in a shelter in Dorchester. I have nothing left. And Maggie, I'm sick. The doctors found tumors in my lungs. They give me maybe a year. I should have felt satisfaction, vindication, justice. Instead, I just felt tired. What do you want from me, Robert? I don't know, he admitted. Maybe I just wanted you to see what you've done to me, to see that you won, that you destroyed me completely. I didn't destroy you, I said calmly. You destroyed yourself. Every choice you made, every lie, every theft, every betrayal, those were your choices. I just made sure you faced consequences for them. I'm dying alone, Robert said, and now he was crying openly. Jennifer's in prison. Emma and Nicole won't speak to me. David blocked my number. I have no one, Maggie, no one. You had me for 50 years, I said. You had a wife who loved you unconditionally. You had a son who admired you. You had a life most people would envy. And you threw it all away because nothing was ever enough for you. That's not my fault, Robert. That's yours. So you're just going to let me die alone? After 50 years of marriage? 50 years of lies, I corrected. And yes, Robert, you're going to die alone, because that's what happens when you spend your life using people instead of loving them. Everyone eventually figures out what you are and leaves. I'm just the last one to go. I loved you, Robert insisted desperately. I know you don't believe it, but I did love you, Maggie. I also loved, You loved yourself, I interrupted. Only yourself. Everyone else was just a supporting character in the Robert Chen story. Well, the story's over now. You don't get a redemption arc. You don't get forgiveness and reconciliation. You get exactly what you earned, nothing. I closed the door. Robert stood on my porch for 10 minutes, crying. Then he left. I never saw him again. 3 months later, David called to tell me Robert had died. Heart attack in the homeless shelter. No service planned, no obituary, just a quiet disposal of remains. How do you feel? David asked carefully. I don't know, I admitted. Not glad he's dead. Not sad either. Just empty where he used to be. That's grief, Emma said. She was on speakerphone too. Not grief for who he was, but grief for who you hoped he could be, for the life you thought you had. She was right. Now, sitting in my kitchen on this sunny June morning, exactly 1 year after the anniversary party, I realized something profound. I'd survived. Not just the betrayal, not just the divorce, not just the public humiliation and the legal battles and the media attention. I'd survived the death of my identity as Robert Chen's wife and the birth of something new, Margaret Huang Chen, a complete person on her own. The doorbell rang. It was Lily, arriving early for our standing Tuesday breakfast. Ready? She asked. We're supposed to meet the film crew at 10. Oh, right. The documentary. After months of refusing media requests, I'd finally agreed to let a team from PBS film a documentary about elder financial abuse. Not about me specifically, about the epidemic of elderly people being financially exploited by family members, and what could be done to stop it. My story would be part of it, but so would the stories of dozens of other women who'd been betrayed, stolen from, manipulated, and silenced. Women who were finally finding their voices. As I drove to the filming location with Lily, Emma, and Nicole, my chosen family, the good that had come from the bad, I thought about the knowledge I'd gained this year. The education I'd received in the hardest school possible, betrayal. I'd learned that love without respect is worthless. That trust, once broken, can rarely be repaired. That financial independence is survival. That speaking truth, even when it destroys you, is better than living comfortable lies. Most importantly, I'd learned that at 79 years old, I could still reinvent myself, still build something new, still find purpose and joy and family in unexpected places. That knowledge, that hard-won education, was worth sharing. At the filming location, the director, a woman in her 40s named Patricia Chen, no relation, greeted me warmly. "Mrs. Chen, thank you for doing this. Your story has already helped thousands of women find courage to leave abusive situations. This documentary will reach millions more." We filmed for 3 hours, me talking about the warning signs I'd missed, the financial red flags I'd ignored because I trusted Robert, the importance of maintaining your own bank accounts, your own credit, your own identity, even in marriage. And I talked about the aftermath, the legal battle, the victory, the freedom. "What would you say to women watching this who are in similar situations?" Patricia asked. I looked directly into the camera, speaking to the women I knew were out there living my old life, trapped in lies, afraid to speak up. "You deserve truth," I said firmly. "You deserve respect. You deserve financial security. And if your partner is stealing from you, lying to you, manipulating you, that's not love. That's abuse. And you have the right to fight back. It won't be easy. It will hurt. It might destroy everything you thought your life was. But living in truth, even painful truth, is better than living comfortable lies. You are stronger than you know, and you don't have to face this alone." The documentary would air in 3 months. Already, advocacy groups were planning to use it as an educational tool. Already, lawyers were citing my case as precedent in elder abuse proceedings. Robert had tried to erase me. Instead, he'd made me unforgettable. As we wrapped filming, Emma hugged me tightly. "I'm proud of you, Maggie. Mom would be proud too. You turned your pain into purpose." "That's the only way to survive betrayal," I said. "You either let it destroy you, or you use it to build something better." That evening, gathered in my kitchen for our weekly family dinner, I looked around at the faces I loved: David and Rachel, Emma and her new girlfriend Sophie, Nicole and James, Lily and Eleanor. A family built on honesty, on choice, on love that was freely given and gratefully received. "Thank you," I said, raising my glass. "All of you. For standing with me, for helping me survive, for teaching me that family isn't blood, it's loyalty." "To Maggie," David said, "the strongest woman I know." "To truth," Emma added. "To second chances," Nicole said. "To the future," Eleanor said. We drank and laughed and lived. And somewhere, in whatever comes after, I hoped Robert was watching. I hoped he understood what he'd lost. Because I'd found it. Finally, at 79, I'd found it. Peace, purpose, family, freedom. The knowledge that I was enough, that I'd always been enough, that Robert's betrayal wasn't about my inadequacy, it was about his. That education, that hard-won, painful, beautiful knowledge, was the gift that came from the ashes. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own life, your own relationships, your own courage, I want to hear from you. Please subscribe to the Voices of Auntie Rose channel, hit that like button, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. This knowledge, this education we've shared today about respect, about truth, about standing up for yourself even when it costs everything, this is education that can save lives. Leave a comment below. Tell me, what did this story make you feel? Have you experienced betrayal? Have you found the courage to fight back? Or are you still struggling? Still wondering if you have the strength? Share your heart with me. I'm listening. And please, share this video. Share this education, this knowledge, with others who need it. Because somewhere out there, a woman is living the lie I lived. And maybe, just maybe, hearing my story will give her the courage to tell her own truth. Subscribe to Voices of Auntie Rose for more stories like this. Stories of survival, of courage, of finding yourself after losing everything. Because these stories matter. This knowledge matters. This education in life, in love, in survival, it matters. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here with me on this journey. I wish you health, happiness, peace, and the courage to live in truth. Until next time, this is Auntie Rose, reminding you, you are stronger than you know, braver than you believe, and worthy of love that honors you. Take care of yourselves, and remember, it's never too late to choose truth over comfort, courage over fear, freedom over chains. Goodbye for now. I'll see you in the next video. And always remember, the best education, the most important knowledge we can gain, is learning our own worth. You are enough. You always were. Until we meet again.